What is up? Welcome to another episode of the True Strong Podcast. Thank you for putting us in your ears right now. I know some of you have just started your run and you're thinking, why not run with my friends, Eddie and Sally? And Eddie, how excited are you that people have decided to run with us? You did a poll the other day and it said that 63% of people are listening to us while they run.
Yeah, on their long run. Yep.
On their long run. We got a handful of people that are listening while they race. So as you're starting out right now, this is the beginning of your run is what I'm thinking. Or maybe you're out for like a 4 or 5 hour run and this is like the second or third episode that you're listening to. Whatever it is, we are stoked about today's episode because as you saw in the title, this is the Bend story. It is a topic that people have asked us about and a story that we haven't told in its entirety yet about why we moved to Bend, Oregon and why we moved back and all of the in between. Eddie, you are smiling right now.
What I was just thinking, what if people had no idea it's Bend, Oregon? They just thought the Bend story, like maybe this is like about stretching or something.
Dude, that's so true. Well, we haven't written the actual title of the episode yet, so maybe it needs to be the Bend, Oregon story or the big move to Bend story. Maybe that will be a little bit helpful. Hey kids, what is up? Eddie and Sally are waving at you right now. If you are watching us on YouTube, or if you are in the car on your way to practice, on your way to school, or vice versa, on your way back home, we love you. We're rooting for you. And we're so excited. If you are listening to this in June of 2024, or maybe just at some point in the summer, welcome to summer vacation, kids. We hope that you have some fun things planned. We hope that you get into the sunshine and the water at some point. But well done on another year completed. Thank you, parents, for always sharing with us your kids' stories. I mean, we get to hear about the sports they're playing and different things that they're achieving, and we love it. So thank you for being here. To all of our listeners who have just started a nice long commute, you've settled into that car seat, you've turned up the volume, and we just are going to hang out with you right now. Thank you so much. You're making food. You are in the garage lifting or at the gym. We just love we love this moment, Eddie. We love when we get to sit in the studio and greet everyone. So as always, we just want to say we love you, we appreciate you, and we're rooting for you. Whatever it is that you are doing right now, we are stoked. Let's go.
We are stoked. All right. So let's open it up just right away.
Let's do it. Let's just dive straight in. There's a lot of things we can dive straight into.
Okay.
But
I'm going to dive into giving some shout outs.
Okay.
Let's do that. Let's give some shout outs to a couple of people that gave us some messages through Instagram. The first one is Anna. Anna said, "Hey, I'm Anna from Germany."
Wait, did you insert that yourself?
No.
Okay.
She literally did "hey" with 2 Y's.
I'm like, are you Anna? Hey, I'm Anna.
Hey, I'm Anna. Hey with like a couple Y's. So hey,
okay.
That's why I kind of... Okay.
Right.
I'm Anna from Germany. I had my first 31K trail run this year. I loved it. I'm proud of myself, and that's something I'm proud of as well, because last year I learned to really feel proud of for myself. Sally and Eddie, your videos and the podcast were a part of this journey. Also, I projected a lot of tips for the mind, Sally talked about, for my big exam this year. I had my calories, and I was focused, and I did it, one step in front of the other. Even if I'm not sure of which university I will get in or where I will live by the end of the year, I know it will be okay, and I will make my way.
I love that.
Anna's getting ready to head off to university.
Anna. Let's go, Anna. You know, that's pretty personal to Eddie and I because we are counting the days to when Mackenzie is leaving for university, and not so much as we're excited.
Yeah, I was going
to
say,
I'm
I'm not
down
really
the days,
counting the days.
Like the way a child counts down to the days until Christmas or their birthday or a big event. We are savoring, holding tightly to the 59 days, 19 hours, and 59 minutes until she moves.
Dialed.
If you're looking right now on YouTube, you can see me holding up my countdown app with all of the big events in there. And one of them is the NAU move-in date. Eddie, you know, we just booked a Airbnb in Flagstaff. Mackenzie, all the athletes are supposed to check in on the 17th of August.
Yep.
And Mackenzie and I are going to go out there a week before. Flagstaff, as some of you guys know, sits at 7,000 feet. And so Mackenzie and I are planning on going out there and training a week before the athletes check in, just to get a little head start. Just a little head start on that altitude training. I will say I'm a little jealous at how well Mackenzie does in altitude. She's a natural.
Yeah, she is.
She doesn't seem to be fazed by it, but I thought, I don't think that she has stayed at altitude for more than a couple weeks.
No.
Bend only sits like at 4,000 feet, so
4.
it's not extreme. So I think that was like the longest, stretch she has. So we're like, all right, let's go see what it's gonna be like. So we're gonna go up there early. We're gonna have some mom and daughter time. Ed, you and Isaiah are going to join us a few days into that week.
We're going to crash the party.
Yeah, you are. It's going to be a good time. But Anna, we are rooting for you because moving out of your home with your family and onto the campus of a university, that is the start of a great big adventure. And with those transitions, there might be a little bit of nervousness that comes at that because there's so many big changes. But you can do it. And many times when we embark on things that are scary, we don't know how it's going to turn out. We don't know what to expect. That's how we get stronger. That's how, that's where the greatest adventures begin. And so we're really excited for you, and we hope that it's a great transition.
Yep. All right. Anna from Germany, thank you for writing in. The next one is Gina. She also gave us a message on the Instagram.
What's up, Gina?
Gina said, "Hey, Sally and Eddie. I've been loving your podcast. Usually I don't listen to things while I run, just the sound of my feet and the world around me. But life has been quite stressful lately, and I often find myself getting in my head while running. So I've been turning to you guys to fill my ears and take me away for a small part of the day. I just listened to episode 61, and as if I didn't love you guys enough, hearing you discuss your favorite characters from The Office made my day. The Office has always been my go-to for a good laugh or a smile, and it was awesome hearing you are fans of the show as well. Thank you for all that you do. You definitely make the world a better place." Gina, thank you.
Thank you, Gina.
Listening to us.
Yeah, I've been there.
Yeah?
Yeah. I like to, especially when I'm in the mountains.
No music.
No music.
No podcast, yeah.
But I've had runs where I'm like, I need to listen to something to, lift my spirits. So whether that's maybe some inspiring music, or even a podcast, like an encouraging podcast, I'll throw that on there. There's been moments, Eddie, where I have called you for a 30-minute conversation while I run along.
Yeah. A lot of people put the podcast on to be encouraged, be inspired. Do you ever throw yourself on? Like, you know what? I'm going to listen to Sally McRae today and get pumped up and get inspired. And you're like, oh, that was good word. I'm going to
yes,
push.
Sally. Yes. The only time I listen to it is just in review when you and I have to do the
critique.
Review. Yeah, the critique before.
But not
before
to be inspired. Not to get pumped.
It's hard sometimes to listen to my voice.
Tell me about it.
But I've heard this before. I'm not like being critical. It's just like, I don't know what it is. Like sometimes I listen to myself and I'm like, please stop talking.
I say that about you all the time in my head. I don't say it out loud. Okay,
You're
maybe
making
sometimes.
Your own dinner tonight.
Sometimes
you are
I say it out
sleeping
loud.
on the couch and.
All right, Gina, fellow Office fan, we see you getting your run in. Listen to Choose Strong. Appreciate it. All right, last one. Emily also wrote in from to the Choose Strong podcast Instagram. Said, "Hey guys, I've listened to your podcast since the start." She's the OG right here.
Oh, awesome.
I use running as a way to help cope with the high stress of everyday life. And I serve in the military, and I currently am in Romania for 6 months. I was fortunate enough to be able to sign up and run a 50K mountain race while I was here. And while running with thousands of others through the mountains of Romania, I was one of the few Americans racing. Even with the language barriers, I spoke with other runners about your podcast, and everyone was so excited. Your impacts have definitely stretched all the way across the world and have such a positive impact on people everywhere. Just wanted to share with you all that the Choose Strong community is doing the work even in Western Europe. Very cool. Yes,
that.
Emily, thank you for serving.
Yes, thank you.
Appreciate that.
Thank you, Emily. Thank you for your service, and thank you for being our friend.
Yeah, how cool is that? Running around in the mountains of Romania, talking to other people about the Choose Strong podcast. That's pretty cool.
That is amazing.
All right, Emily, thanks. And all the others, we appreciate you. And for those of you that we didn't read or we didn't get to, we have read about you, and we see what you guys are doing out there. And we appreciate you guys putting in the work and also listening to the podcast while you're doing it.
I mean, it's a daily activity of yours, Eddie, that you screenshot messages and send them to me. So Eddie's usually the first to receive all communications, and he will screenshot some really cool stories or reviews or just things that people write in. And I know you do it purposely to brighten my day or to make me laugh or just remind me, hey, we have some good work to do, and keeps us both on track.
Yeah.
So we really do appreciate every review, every message that comes in.
Yeah.
I think you and I agreed we could easily probably spend several hours a day just on that alone, whether it's the communication back and forth or touching back with people. So we would love to write every single person back. We don't always have the time frame to do that, but know that we do appreciate what you do write to us.
Yes.
Yeah. So, Eddie, we are 18 days out from Western States. Oof. And I just sat down with Nick Bear. We did a podcast when we went out to do the Mango Go Gel launch. And it was interesting because when I sat down to do that podcast, I said, we're 27 days out from Western States. So I feel like the closer I get to a race, the faster the days go by. To our listeners, I think many of you are nodding your head saying, yes, that is what it feels like. And I think it's easy to feel like we need more time before a race. I mean, I remember when I was pregnant with Mackenzie, you and I at moments were like, wait, we need a couple more months of preparation before Mackenzie comes. And it's easy to feel like that with, for our youth listeners, when you're preparing for a final exam or a test, like you wish you had a few more hours to study, a few more minutes to go over your notes, right before that test is handed out. So I think that's a normal human feeling that, did I do everything I needed to do? Did I, cover all the bases? And also, it's the little bit of uncertainty that creeps in, knowing we can't control or foresee the future. And we like that. Yeah. We like to know that everything's going to be okay and that it's going to pan out the way that we dreamed it to be. And, so I've been feeling a little bit of that. I'm right there with you, my friends. I get all the same jitters and the nervousness and the questions as you get before race day. So, just this morning, Eddie and I, we love to have breakfast and coffee before we podcast. I think Eddie is gracious enough to particularly do that for me because he knows that my brain is all over the place and I could talk about 100 different topics.
Hence the notes in front of us now.
Yeah. But it kind of helps us to let's make sure we really focus on that topic. But one of the things that you and I talked about, Eddie, was just how busy this season has been with the kids, and especially with Mackenzie graduating and just all the new events and activities that they have, that they're a part of this year. And at one point I said, I don't think I have run on a treadmill as much in my training as when they were babies. And so I just want to tell you listeners that when I stand at the start line at 5 a.m. on June 29th in Olympic Valley, I will be remembering you and I will be racing for you and representing all of you working toward a dream. And I'm not necessarily just talking about running. I know a lot of you have running goals, but just anything in your life. Know that Eddie and I have been grinding right next to you as we have been working every day, raising kids, and just all the highs and lows that come with life. And so trying my best to hammer out a solid high level training program has been met with a lot of challenges, but I am really proud of the training and the work that I put in. It was not what I had envisioned it would be in the beginning. You know, I thought I'd be on Mount Baldy every other day.
Yeah.
And but we got in some really good training camps on the course. I put in a lot of, I mean, I can't believe how many times I ran for 3+ hours on the treadmill.
Crazy.
But I'll tell you what, it's all part of the journey. And we've talked about this in YouTube series and past episodes about you do the best with what you have on that given day, and putting in the work in a way that is the most unique to your life, that is most unique to your family, and the demands of your work is so important. And it would be really easy for me to look around at my competitors and be like, wow, all my competitors have been training in Flagstaff for the past 6-7 weeks, or living on the course for the last 2 months. But I learned that lesson a long time ago, to not do that. It's important that I always appreciate the life that I've been given, and always look for the blessings, even in the busy days.
Yeah.
You know, we just had Mackenzie's graduation party this past Sunday, and I got up at 6 a.m. The day before her party, and I stayed up until 3:30 in the morning, working on all the details of her party. But a big piece of that, and we can include a few images from her party, was putting together this awards wall. And it was, on the opposite wall was tons of pictures, but everything else was like all her medals, her trophies, her plaques, her race bibs. If you're looking on YouTube, you'll see why this took me so long. But a big piece of my heart was coming out as I was putting that together. Just my mama's heart. I may start crying here in just a second, but you know, one of the things that I understood this year for Mackenzie, you know, she was awarded Female Athlete of the Year at Huntington Beach High School, which is a massive honor. You know, she's graduating as one of the most decorated athletes that Huntington Beach High School has ever had. But Mackenzie keeps all of her medals and plaques and trophies in storage or in the garage. She has like a couple in her room, but I thought, you know, there's very few times in our life where we are greatly celebrated, where somebody highlights all of our accomplishments and our achievements. And I think it also comes down to very few people that will ever do that. And I think that has been the greatest joy for you and I, Eddie, that we get to do that.
Yeah.
But what I did was, we went to the storage. We got out her boxes of trophies and plaques and medals. She had a box, I think, shoved under her bed, and I took them all out. And she started, her first race was when she was 4 years old. She started racing on a team when she was 8 years old. So she's been racing for 10 years. And I decided to give her a glimpse, a snapshot of how far she's come. And so I did this huge setup again. You're seeing this on the YouTube channel. And it was the first time that she has seen all of her medals, trophies, and plaques in one spot.
Yeah.
And she had a really hard racing season. It was pretty incredible to see her push through some injuries to help her team get to state, get to CIF.
Yeah.
She still ran like some great races. She was not 100% though, and was always kind of battling, coming back, battling again. It was really admirable what she did. And so that was another motivation in wanting to do that for her, and reminding her that even though, you know, you have this little pain in your, you know, you have this pain in your knee right now, I want you to remember you're on a journey, and there's going to be highs and lows. You're going to have seasons where you're going to have injuries. You're going to have races that don't pan out the way that you had hoped them to. And so I just stood with her after the whole thing was done. And I gave her a big hug, and I said, it gives me the greatest joy that I get to celebrate you in this way. And this might be the last time that you see all of these medals and plaques out like this.
Mm-hmm.
It's probably the last time they'll ever be displayed. This is the last time that someone is going to recognize a decade long of achievements and put them out for all, to see. And it was just, it was ended up being a really special day. We had a big party for her. I mean, it was people from all different parts of her life that came out. So we had family that came out, and we had, our college friends and all their kids came out. We had her teammates come out, and, neighbors come out. So it was just this big, huge crowd of people that walked through the house and got to see Mackenzie's little display, and give her a hug and congratulate her as she steps forward into chasing some pretty big dreams for herself. So there's been a lot going on as I train for Western States. My focus has been on savoring these months, these last final months with Mackenzie before she leaves for college, wanting to be present in every way that I can for the kids. A lot of big things that we've been doing in our business and growing. And so now being 18 days out from the actual race day, I'm really excited for the opportunity to be there, but I can't stress enough how this race is just going to represent so much more than just, getting to the finish line. It's living a life that's been true and authentic, and also embracing all these different events and transitions that are happening in my life right now. So you and Mackenzie are going to be out there crewing and pacing.
Yep.
We are very sad that Isaiah's biggest summer camp, his favorite camp of the whole year, is that same weekend. So we are very much going to miss him. I'm going to miss his jokes and the way he makes me laugh out there. I'll be really sad to miss him. But I would love for you to wear something yellow on Western States Day. Take a picture of yourself, share it in a story. If you go into the live feed, don't be alarmed if you don't see the, the live cams following me. They will be following the top 10 runners. Let's give full respect and cheer for those top runners. But you can quietly cheer for me in the live feed if you want by just throwing up some yellow hearts. Anything that's yellow, just put that in there. I'm sure Eddie Mackenzie will be checking in on the live stream, even as they're crewing and pacing, when they get reception. So anytime they're going to see yellow hearts in there, I'm sure they'll know, like, that's just a little encouragement, a little bit of shout as I move through those 100 miles. I'll tell you what, you guys, my favorite part is going to be running with Mackenzie. She's going to join me for a few miles here and there on the course, and then finish with me crossing the finish line on the track. So, it's going to be a really, really special day, and I'm very excited to take you guys with me. So, for as many times as you guys take Eddie and I with you in your training and racing, I will be taking you in my heart on race day of Western States 100.
Nice. Yeah, looking forward to that. Be kind of fun to get back there after 8 years to. I know.
It doesn't feel like it. I guess maybe because I do go there every year.
Yeah.
And I'm either pacing or doing, I'm actually commentating. It's I've been in there in some capacity, but you're right. Yeah, it's been 8 years since I raced.
We were there. We came up last year too, right? Like we met you. Mm-hmm. We were on our way to Oregon.
Yep.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
I had done the night shift. Billy asked me, he's like,
right.
Hey, can you do like the 12 a.m. to 6 a.m. so I can sleep?
Yeah, that's right.
That was super cool. So yeah, looking forward to it, and looking forward to connecting with you guys all throughout, race day. This episode is brought to you by Cozy Earth. As the summer heat rises, keep your sleep refreshing with Cozy Earth's bamboo sheet set. Cozy Earth bedding is crafted with advanced technology and regulates body temperature for a cool, comfortable sleep all summer long. All products come with a 100-night sleep trial and 10-year warranty. Incorporating Cozy Earth improves sleep quality and enhances overall wellness. Get 30% off and a free pair of lounge socks at CozyEarth.com using code CozySally. That's code COZYSALLY. Speaking of race day and building towards goals, Eddie, let's dive in to Eddie's goals. This is the segment that people have been waiting for. Give us a little update because, like I said, it is June 11th today. As I stare at you from across the table, I'm noticing some bulging biceps, a wider chest, and you're looking pretty good.
It's a lie.
Pretty good, if I can say so myself.
Well, let me just chat about my goals real quick and how it's been, how it's going.
Okay.
I want to say that I failed at my goal. I had, as you guys know, I had a goal of not running for 8 weeks, and I did not make it. I actually jumped on the treadmill last week, and I ran a few miles.
Wow.
So I failed my goal.
Now, was this when Mackenzie was there?
You know what? She was there.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, it was actually, I got a little FOMO, so it was the global running day.
That's right.
And
it was my post that gave you FOMO, right?
There you go.
It was just all mountain glorious pictures
maybe that's
running.
What it was. And then so I jumped on the treadmill. So yeah, I did not meet my goal. But you know what? Ever since Global Running Day and running 3 miles that day, I have been locked in, and I'm definitely have not slipped since. So I am on track to achieve my goal once again because I have not run.
Well, as I said last week, these little signs that are popping up, it kind of tell me that you are recovered from LA Marathon. You're starting to itch and get back into running, even if, whatever that looks like for you, whether it's, hey, I'm going to run twice a week, or I'm going to go out for a 20-minute run, or what duration, frequency, that's totally up to you. But I think that's a great sign.
Yeah. So I broke the goal. Didn't make it. And I thought I was gonna be able to do it.
I love that you breaking the goal is actually admirable. Like, your breaking the goal is, I went and did more than expected.
Yep. So, but yeah, I'm back on the train here, and full steam ahead, going towards the July 4th with no running. But it might be tough because, like I said, I've been itching to get out and run a few miles. But so I'm 3 miles in 5 weeks now.
Well, no judgments, Ed. What we do like seeing is that every day you are doing something. Like, you're doing something to strengthen your body. You're doing something to move. And I think that is ultimately what we want to be doing.
Yeah.
For the longevity of our life. We want to keep moving. We want to keep moving along. So
that's it.
How is the Strava group going? You are on Strava exponentially more than I am. I glanced in there the other day and saw the number of members inching toward the 3,000 mark, which was pretty amazing. But I did scroll quickly through some of the titles and comments that are in there, and wow, a lot of people are stoked about the group. And I love seeing other people comment, encourage, give kudos, and there's a lot of encouragement going on in there.
Yeah, I just pulled it up, and there's 3,122 people in there.
So it was like 26 something when I had looked at it. So wow, it's growing by the
day. I just pulled it up. The new post in there says from Austin Corville, said, "New shoes, new me. We're back." Let's go, Austin.
Austin, there is nothing like a pair of new shoes. Someone gave me that tip.
You got to see him too. Go ahead. I'll show me a second.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Someone gave me that tip. This was like back when we had moved to Washington, D.C. When if you're feeling a little slump in your training, you feel like you just need something, get a new piece of gear.
Oh, gear.
And be excited to wear that the next day, regardless of what the training is. Like, sometimes you just need, you need
it's
something like that.
It's so true, because like when I was younger, I remember like if you just get like a new pair of Payless shoes for like $8.
Remember like, Payless shoes source?
They're like the cheetah shoes or something.
Yes.
I remember it like gave me this sense of like insane confidence. Like I could go jump over a chair. Like, but yesterday I couldn't because I don't know. Just you're right. New shoes, new gear gives you a little pep.
You look good. You feel good.
That's it.
Yeah.
So check these out.
Yes.
These are the new kicks.
What? He got him in yellow. What brand is that? Can you tell?
Look like Hoka's.
Are they Hoka? Oh man, those are sweet, Austin.
Those are sweet.
I'll be looking for those on the coast.
I just gave him a big kudo for that one.
A big kudo.
I don't know if you
can
can
you
give
imagine
different
if
sizes.
Strava changed it where you could give like a different size of kudo? You're like, wow, they only gave me the small kudo. I was hoping for the extra large kudo.
Only 6 miles today. Mini kudo. Mini kudo.
Mini kudo.
Yeah.
Oh man.
That would be.
Do they have a
fun.
thumbs down on Strava?
I don't think so.
I'm glad they don't.
That'd be mean.
That would be really mean.
What would you give a thumbs down to? Like only if like someone fell or something? Even that's kind of like
if someone fell.
like a bloody knee. Like, thumbs down on that one. Bad run. Like when would that be appropriate? That's I guess my question.
I don't know. I mean, I think you can give a thumbs down like on YouTube, and I'm like, why does that exist? But then again, I mean,
yeah, but I don't think they like they used to, right? They give you like a count of how many thumbs down. I don't think they have. I think that's only like internal now. You can kind of see that on the back end. But anyways,
okay,
we're getting off topic. Anyways,
we are. That's weird.
That's weird. So yeah, the Strava group. Again, if you're not in there, get in there. Give you some good accountability, and people can chime in and give you some props and some major kudos.
You can also head on over to our daughter Mackenzie McCrae's profile, because she is having a battle with Eddie constantly that he gets more kudos than her, and she doesn't understand why.
I always tell her, I go, look,
Eddie
Mackenzie,
loves it.
I always tell her, Mackenzie, look, people, they expect you to run like under 5 minutes. Like, that's just incredible. It's like, all right, she did it again. But when your dad runs like 3 miles and it's like super slow, they're like, you know what? This is the sympathy kudo. We're going to give him some sympathy kudos for like, you know what? He tried. He was out there. He gave it his best. And we're going to give him a sympathy kudo. And I think she's bought into that. I think she thinks it's real.
Well, I just love that you have started labeling the different types of kudos. And can you imagine if there was like 10 different types of kudos underneath your activity post? You get a sympathy kudo. I might
throw my resume towards Strava and see what they think. I can be in charge over there.
You get a boring kudo.
Same route again, huh, Eddie?
Hey.
Yeah, boring kudo.
Boring kudo.
Straight line down the beach path, huh? For the 20th time. Boring mini kudo.
Way to change it up, bro. Boring mini kudo.
Wow.
Eddie, I am so excited to dive into our story today because, you know, how many times have you and I sat down or even just taken a moment to reflect on our time in Bend and how much our life has changed in the present?
Yeah.
And it's motivated us. It's encouraged us. It's also been one of those things that we're just like in awe of.
Yeah.
This will go down as probably one of my favorite life experiences with you.
Yeah.
It is something that I will always cherish, that I will always be grateful for. And it ultimately changed our life by us stepping out and moving out of California and into the great unknown. It really was. There's so much unknowns. And at the core of it, just a big step of faith.
Yeah.
And I'd say the vast majority did not understand why we were doing it. And even when we moved back, I remember having even people I didn't know very well weigh in and kind of be like, oh, yeah, you realize you made the wrong decision, right? Oh, so you moved back. Like it was so interesting. And I would have to just smile and nod and be like, oh, yeah. But there was a whole story there that we're really proud of. Yeah. And we haven't told. There's so many different parts to it. And so I thought every time you and I ask for people to send us questions, whether it's through your account on Instagram or my Yellow Runner account, this is a question that pops up. And it has been for the past 4 years. Yeah. Why did you move to Bend, Oregon?
Yep.
And why did you move back? So if you want to kind of just kick off the story.
Yeah. Yeah, I can. I'm going to, like I always do with stories, I'm going to back up a little bit and give you a little bit of background because I think it's necessary. Well, I mean, 18-ish years ago, just after we got married.
Yeah.
We're
going to be celebrating
before we
22 years,
yes.
But at the time we'd been married for 18 years.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So just after we got married, I, for whatever reason, I still don't understand why or how I got on the computer.
The World Wide Web.
The World Wide Web.
You got on Juno.com.
Yeah. And, I was so intrigued by land and trees and, rivers. And for whatever reason, I found myself looking at like properties and in Bend, Oregon. And very strange.
Had you ever been there before?
Never been. Didn't know. Like I said, I don't even know how I kind of landed on that at all. That city, for whatever reason. Maybe someone talking about it. I don't know. But I mean, growing up in Southern California, just outside of in LA County, I'm not really surrounded by trees, forests, and land and rivers. So it was intriguing to me, and so for a reason, I was looking at land in Bend, Oregon. You can get like all this land in a house, and you're right there by the river for like $90,000. And I am literally kicking myself today for not jumping on that back then.
I remember vividly walking from the kitchen into the dining room. Well, that's really funny, as if there was even a transition.
I was going to say, they're like two steps.
Our kitchen was a hallway. Do you remember?
Yeah.
It was hard for both of us to be in the kitchen at the same time.
Yeah.
And you were sitting at the table, and I came up from behind you. And that is something I knew about you early on. You really love water. Yeah. Whether it's a lake, the ocean, the river, and you do love trees.
Yeah.
And I remember coming up and seeing, I don't know what it was. It wasn't Zillow. Zillow didn't exist back then, but it was a listing. It was a site that had listings. And the pictures that you were looking at it was a river and there was trees. And I was like, what are you looking at? Yeah. And you're like, dude, you can get like 3 acres right on the river, surrounded by trees. And yeah, they were so inexpensive. But my initial response was one of great shock, because the McRae family stays in the same place. Like they have stayed in the same spot for how long? I mean, you've stayed in Lakewood
forever, yeah,
since the time your dad was a little boy.
Yeah.
And then even your sister and your brother always lived just a couple miles from your parents. Well, your brother has since moved to Indiana past a year or two, but I think that was a shock to me, because it seems so uncharacteristic of you to look at something out of state. And we were brand new married. I think we were only married for like a few months. So I had never been to Bend, Oregon. You had never been to Bend, Oregon, but I do remember for like a few days, this was kind of brewing in your mind. It is only natural, and we got married young. We were 23 when we got married. It's only natural that after you get married, people are asking the question, okay, when are you going to have kids? Like, what's the career that you're going to stick to for X amount of years? And it has been a dream of yours to own a home. Yeah. And, when we first got married, I mean, we had no money in savings. Right. I think when we got married, I had a little bit of credit card debt.
We had a ton of school debt.
We had school debt. Yeah. And then Southern California is very expensive.
And we were both teaching at the time, which aren't like, hey, you don't make a ton of money.
The first year you were still getting your master's degree.
Yeah, actually, I wasn't even teaching yet. Yeah.
And you were making balloon animals at restaurants on the weekends. Right. And I was teaching.
You were teaching.
And working at Victoria's Secret as a second job.
That's right.
And a restaurant. Like there was, and then you ended up getting like a substitute job at the school with me.
Yes.
So we were piecing together income, trying to pay off our school debt, this credit card debt. I think our rent at that time for our little 1-bedroom apartment was $775. Yep. And all of our furniture was used. We got it at garage sales, or it was passed down to us. I think the one brand new thing we had was your grandma had gifted us with a brand new bed. Yep. That was like the one piece of furniture that was new in our house. So Yeah, those early years. I know a lot of listeners are shaking their head because they can relate. Yeah, the early years of marriage, especially when you get married young, they're so precious. They're so raw.
Yeah.
You're just trying to figure everything out. So, yeah, that's the Ben story actually goes all the way back to our first year of marriage, which is, like I said, we're celebrating 22 years of marriage on the 22nd in 11 days.
It's coming up, yes.
Look at that.
Yeah. So I think that backstory is important, but I think also people think that for us a couple years ago, like Ben was just kind of like, let's just go for it. But there was even that year that we were just talking about, we were eventually planning on moving internationally, right, to Hungary, and
that first year, of marriage,
which was a big step for us. But we were like, yeah, let's go do it. Like we were gonna change it up, and we saved a bunch of money, remember? And
we did,
and had plans to go and move to Hungary, and that didn't happen, but we were prepared to do that. And but yeah, we ended up moving to Washington D.C. area.
Yeah, I love that. Cool. I love that you bring that up, because I think this idea we're married, we get to create our own life now, was very exciting to us. I know that, as is true today, I always had some idea or thing that I wanted to do or to try. And it was fun to dream with you. It was fun to just like, why not kick around an idea? Like, what would happen if we just moved away?
Yeah.
And we didn't tell anyone that we were considering that. So you applied to go to a college in Hungary, and then I was going to go over and write children's books. I've always had this dream of writing books.
Yeah.
And I was really leaning into children's books. And so that was the goal. You got approved, you got into the college, and then I think it was pretty much last minute you pivoted. You got asked to come out and help out with a church in Washington, D.C. And at the time I was a freshman English teacher, a soccer coach, and we essentially just said, okay, yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
Like, let's just move to Washington, D.C. Why not? We hadn't even been married a year. I think a part of it was we don't really have any grand responsibilities. Like, if we're going to do something wild, like move across the other side of the country, like, let's do it now when we don't have kids and we're not like super locked into these careers. I'd only been teaching for a couple years, kind of going back and forth with like, is this what I want to do for my whole life? Like, do I want to teach for the next 20 years?
Yeah.
You had that was your first year of teaching, right?
Yeah, I taught 1 year.
You taught 1 year. So I guess it was year 2. I'm sorry.
Yeah,
we had been married for going on 2 years. So it was, we just decided to just try it. It was like, why not try? We were curious. It was something that was so opposite to anything that anyone in your family had done. And same with my family too.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that about us.
Yeah, I think we feel that we still draw on some of those experiences, right? Like we still think about those. We still say, remember when we did that? Like, that's helped us since, doing this now. We've done that before or whatever, right? Like that was a big moment for us in terms of having that experience and doing something kind of like as an adult, like that we didn't have to ask approval for, and we just kind of went for it. And obviously it was a huge change in terms of kind of what we were used to, and we kind of left family, left friends, and had Mackenzie out there, and we got jobs out there, and you picked up different skills, and man, just a cool time of our life,
And friendships that we established out there that we still have today.
Yeah.
And you're right. I did pick up some new job skills. I had a couple jobs while I was out there. My favorite being working for Show Hope. I'll never forget that, but that impacted my life a lot. And the things that I learned out there, I still use today.
Yeah.
It actually gave me the confidence to, when we moved back, to build my own business.
Yeah.
I learned how to do that. I didn't go to school for that, but I was thrown into a position where I had to wear many hats in communications, marketing, donor, coordinator, events. I was traveling, putting on big fundraisers. I mean, I didn't go to school for any of that, but the company was growing so fast and there was only a few of us working. Mm-hmm. And it was like, Sally, you need to handle this. And I would just have to figure it out. And I think that there were moments, you remember, I would come home crying.
Yeah.
Because I felt so much pressure. And I felt like, I don't know what I'm doing. And I'm going to fail. I'm going to let my boss down. And that ended up being, I can look back now, that was like the best thing for me. Mm-hmm. Because the best teacher is just going out and being okay with failing and just building up those experiences. You just keep going back over and over again. So I definitely hit my head on the wall a few times. I hit dead ends and, had to bravely come into meetings like, what about this? And get shot down or be told like, that is not how we do stuff, or that's not how it works, or let me show you how to work this program. I was humbled over and over, week after week in that job. And I look back, I'm like, man, that was better than a college degree. Yeah. What I learned.
Yeah. And I think too, where you remove yourself from what you've grown up with and you know, in terms of like Southern California culture, right? Then we got transplanted into like the Washington D.C. culture, Northern Virginia culture, which, it's very different. And
very different.
And not in a, bad or good way. But it's just like all. Just a different way of life. And so to be transplanted and put into that culture was cool to learn, to gain a new perspective. And I think even for me, where I went out there and ended up getting a teaching job and teaching for a couple of years in a different school system, a huge district. And, I learned a lot in terms of, practices and teaching and the way schools are ran, very different than out here. So, all in all that stuff, the move really helped us just grow as people, as individuals, and gain perspectives, and which was all real positive.
Absolutely. And so because of that move, we both gained a lot of confidence. One, confidence in it's okay to make a big change and to try something new. It's not a death sentence. I think sometimes we think of that, like, what if I go try something new and it totally implodes and I'm going to look dumb, or this is going to feel like a waste of my time, or I'm going to lose everything. It's not good to think that way. Look at it as you're going to go try something new. It may work, it may not, but you're going to learn something that's valuable for the rest of your life. So we made this big life change. We left all of our friends and family behind. We moved on the other side of the country into a brand new culture. And those 2.5 years that we spent there, and we had Mackenzie out there too. Those memories are some of my favorite memories of our marriage. But we have called on those experiences over and over again. They've given us confidence. Like I can meet new people. I can like mingle with people from wherever, have conversations, make new friends. I can try a new job, learn new skills. I don't care how many times that I fail. And when we came back, I mean, that's essentially why I started my fitness and running business. I mean, I had Mackenzie and I really didn't want to go back to work. And I was like, I will do anything to be a stay-at-home mom. So we essentially moved back to just a couple streets over. Yeah. This is so funny how some of this is all going to be to Ben, but we moved back a couple streets over from our first apartment when we first got married. In fact, we asked your mom to go look at it. Yep. We found an apartment on Craigslist and we said, hey mom, can you go and look at this apartment for us? And she signed off on it. And so we sent in the deposit and we just moved straight from, we drove across the country with 3.5-month-old Mackenzie. And we arrived in Huntington Beach back into a very small apartment. And I think it was a 2-bedroom apartment though, because Mackenzie got her own little room. And I remember it being on the 2nd story. And the washer and dryer, the community washer dryer was downstairs. And that's when we just began building a life of 3 and me pursuing whatever it would take to be a stay-at-home mom. We had to figure out a lot of things. And you went into another job and you didn't go right back. I think you went into teaching 1 year, or did you go straight back into the church?
No, I came back and I taught a year of special ed while I was going to get my credential,
Yeah.
the special ed credential at night.
Yeah. And that year, the special ed credential, you hadn't done that. That wasn't anything you went to college for. But that was a gift that you were able to find that job. Because remember, at that time in California, they were laying off a lot of teachers, and it was very hard to find a job. And essentially, it was your old principal that, when you were a student at the high school, found you a job in the district because he liked you. Yeah. And you had found favor in him many years ago. You're just a good kid. And then your mom was a secretary at the high school that you went to school at. So like that was huge. Like having built a relationship in the past allowed you to get that job, but that was brand new to you too. I remember you would come home with stories about your job as a special ed teacher. And I mean, most of the kids in the class had some violent
all
tendencies.
Of them. That's why that's why they're in there. It was an emotionally disturbed class of about 10 kids. So I had no idea what I was doing, and so I was going to school at night. But that was what we came home to, and got jobs and made it work.
This show is sponsored by BetterHelp. One of the relationships that I am most proud of in my life is the relationship I have with Eddie James McRae. And I'll tell you what, a common misconception about strong relationships is that they have to be easy to be right. You know, sometimes the best relationships happen when both people choose to put in the work to make them great. And I believe therapy can be a great place to work through the challenges you face in all of your relationships, whether with friends, work, your significant other, or anyone. In past experience, I have found that therapy is helpful for learning positive coping skills and how to set boundaries. It empowers you to be the best version of yourself. It isn't just for those who've experienced major trauma or have major challenges in life. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Become your own soulmate, whether you're looking for one or not. Visit betterhelp.com/choosestrong today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/choosestrong.
But yeah, so that was the little backstory to kind of where we're going. But again, Sally's one of those things. She's always on Zillow, and she's always looking for a new adventure, and we always give her a hard time for pulling up Zillow links and sending them to our family. And hey, what about this place? Look at this place. No, that's in a different state. Like so. Sally's always been like that, and but now that we have given you the backstory, you kind of understand now. Our move to Bend wasn't completely random.
It wasn't random. Yeah. We had built a foundation of confidence. Yeah. We really understood by this time in our life. So we're now fast forwarding to 2020, and that confidence of, it's okay to try, it's okay to fail. Yeah. We've done this before. Transition is difficult, but a lot of great things can come out of it. And the desire to want to share that with our kids, because I think that is a tool as parents. I feel like a responsibility of parents is we get to guide our kids. We can't expect them to know and understand all the things in life. And so they look to us a lot, but we also get to place experiences in their life that are going to help them in their adult years. Yeah. And so essentially that was a piece of this puzzle, was putting our kids into a position that would, be a difficult transition, but we really believe, hey, they can get through this, but it's going to help them later in their life when, we think of Mackenzie right now, she's going to move out of home into another state. And she is going to remember what that was like. Yeah. She's going to recall moving out of California, moving to Bend, making new friends, trying new things, living in a completely different environment. She's going to have that confidence and that foundation that, this isn't this isn't going to destroy me. It's going to make me better. There's going to be moments that it's really hard, but like there's going to be a lot of good in this too.
Yeah.
So in 2020, as we all know, COVID hit the world, and we had Isaiah's birthday party the day before, like everything shut down. So he was in 7th grade. We had this big party, and it was funny because I remember all the kids, they were going to go see a movie, pizza, kind of hang out, and they were the only ones in the movie theater.
Yeah.
I think it was just then, kind of like Huntington Beach. No one really knew what was going on, but within 24 hours of his birthday party, it was like, oh, the movie theaters are now shut down. So I'll always remember that because life changed overnight. You were teaching at this time. I was, at this time, I was doing online coaching, writing my book in the thick of that, training. And that was kind of it. For many, many years, I had I'd say at least by this time, probably like 6 or 7 years at this point, really wanted to do a podcast. And I really wanted to do some type of fitness online workout club, like something. And I'd even talked to Billy about it too. I think even at one point I was like, hey, can you help me do a DVD series? He's like, nobody uses DVDs anymore, Sally. And so I had all these ideas, but I wasn't able to execute them in the way that I wanted to, because I like things to be done with quality. I like to do things right. And I had tried, in the past doing shows on YouTube or my own podcasts, like from my computer. And then I just would never put it out. I'm like, the audio sounds terrible. The picture is terrible. Like, this is just not good. And so, that was our life at the time. You were a teacher. I was training. I was coaching people online. And we were living in Huntington Beach. Now, when COVID hit, it allowed us to be at home 24/7. You were teaching from Zoom in the garage. I remember you set up this backdrop. And I was cooking all 3 meals every day. Yep. We had a lot of sit down time together. We had a lot of what I love, long conversations, uninterrupted conversations, and with the kids all around us. We watched a lot of Office. Yep. To this day, the kids still kind of connect the Office TV show with COVID. And they will even say that was kind of like something that made them feel better. It was really interesting because it made them laugh. It kind of was like Friends, that the Office is similar to some of those other, like a Seinfeld show or the Friends show where you feel like you're just with friends and they're making you laugh and they're in these real life situations. And so I remember we watched a lot of Office. I was doing a lot of baking and cooking. I can't believe how many loaves of banana bread that I made. We would work out together as a family at home too. We had the little gym in the garage that you had made up. We'd do stuff in the front lawn. I think we took Champ for a walk or a run 3 to 8 times a day. So life slowed down and we were just together all the time. And this is where the Ben story begins. Yeah.
Cause that was mid-March when all that went down. And the lockdown happened, and like you said, what we were doing was just trying to, go through, navigate everything that was new, staying at home. And then it got to May, and we were kind of like, all right, we need to get out of the house. We need to change it up. We need to do something. And that's when our friends that live up in Bend reached out, and they were at that time, exploring the trails and getting outside too, and they invited us up and said, why don't you guys come up and drive up? And we decided, yeah, why not? I've never, at that point, I never met the Fletchers. I never met Monique and Slater. So
I'd known them for like 10 years at that point.
I knew of them through you, that you ran with them. They used to live down here in Southern California. But you're like, let's go. And I said, all right, I'm okay with it. Just get on a little road trip. And so we went up there, and it was awesome. I mean, it was so pretty. And I mean, May in Bend is beautiful.
It kind of like set up what was about to happen in the most perfect way. Yeah. And the Fletchers are some of the most adventurous, enduring people that I know. Like when they say, hey, let's go for a hike, just prepared for like a 6-hour hike. When they say, let's go on the mountain, like you better bring a lot of snacks and electrolytes with you, because when they go outside, they go hard.
Yeah.
They bike, they dirt bike, they run, they climb, they get in the river.
Yep.
I mean, it is so fun when you hang out with the Fletchers. So, at this time, though, I had been to Bend a couple times because when I first signed with Nike in 2014, that was the spot of one of our first photo shoots. So I fell in love with it back in 2014. Mm-hmm. And I remember thinking at that time, wow, I could live here. And Bend was a developing city. I mean, in 2014 and then to what it is today, it has changed a lot. I mean, it has grown exponentially, just in regards to how many neighborhoods and how many people are in the city. But so we made a trip up there. It was a long road trip. I want to say it's like a 14-hour drive from Southern California. Is that right?
Yep.
13, 14 hours. And
depending on who's driving, but yeah.
Well, when we went up there too, it was Mother's Day weekend.
Yes.
And Mo and I decided it was like the second or third. Well, actually, we didn't really know what day we were going to go home. And I remember Saturday, the Fletcher's like, no, stay another day. And so Mo and I decided to get up early in the morning on Mother's Day. Mm-hmm. And we were going to go on this run hike and go get smoothies. And so we went up. She took me to like Tumalo Falls. I mean, it was just the most perfect hike. And, little seed was starting to be planted at this time as we were spending our time there. And I think even like the kids were starting to be curious about Bend. It was really interesting. I don't know how the initial conversation started, but at one point I did ask you, hey, what do you think if we just like moved here?
Yeah. And I think at that point I was like, nah, I mean, this is super pretty, but no, that doesn't make sense.
It was ridiculous.
Yeah, we have I teach down. Yeah, no, that's not an option. It's beautiful, but I mean, at this point of our life, no.
I had secretly looked up a couple houses on Zillow, and I just in that time that we were there, and I said, let's just go look at a house because what the rent is in Huntington Beach was significantly more than what it was in Bend too, and I thought, this would actually, help us out a little bit with, if we just rented something up here, we could, take care of some of our debt. We could save up some money. It's a new place. It's beautiful. And in my heart of hearts, I just love the mountains.
Yeah.
I would love to be in the forest and running along a river and all of that. Like that's where I wanted to be. Yeah. So I thought, well, if the kids are pulled in this too, like maybe we can do some convincing. So it was not a sure shot at first. I mean, I remember even the kids were questioning me when you weren't around. They're like, Mom, every time you bring it up, Daddy doesn't say anything at all. And I told them, I was like, that's when he doesn't want to do it. So stop pestering him. And I remember telling the kids that don't pester Daddy. That's it's not a good idea to pester Daddy because then, then he doesn't want to talk about it. And I said, the best thing you can do when you really want something or you're trying to discover if something is a good idea is just pray about it. Yeah. And so you can pray about it. That's all I would tell the kids. Just pray about it. We'll see what happens. So we went and looked at, I think it was 2 houses, and I remember I could feel your reluctance. Yeah. Like we would walk up and you were like, it was pretty much, all right, Sally, this is what you wanted to do.
Yeah, there was already a no walking up for me. But I was like, I'll entertain it just because you want to.
But you would barely even move in the house. Like you'd just stand there in the living room as I walked around, and then I'd look at you and be like, what? Yeah. We're not moving here.
Yeah, it was one of those things where I was like, cool, it's a house. Like there's tons of these. Like there's some down where we live. There's some up, whatever. Like why are we here? What are we doing?
Yes.
Like and it almost was like it's like we're wasting our time. Like if we're not like planning to like uproot, like what are we doing? Like for me, in at least in my mind, that was my thinking. I'm like, what's going on? What do we? This is not. That's a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah. And so we went to bed that night, and I remember just questioning you before we fell asleep. I was like, what would be so bad about moving here? And you're just like, seriously? Yeah. Like I have a stable job. We have our whole family. We have all our friends. Not only that, Mackenzie is going in to high school. And Isaiah is going into 8th grade. Like, I think we started talking about, if the kids were 3 and 5, it's a lot easier because they're so little. They don't have those well-bonded friendships and relationships as you do when you're a preteen and a teen. Like, it's a lot harder to go through a big transition when your kids are in their teens.
Yeah.
And, there's going to be a lot more battles because of that. And then just the community that we had built up. And I think it made perfect sense for you too. It's like, we need to have financial security, dental and health insurance, like, not just going to uproot and have no idea what we're going to do there.
Yeah.
So we then drove home. But I do distinctly remember the kids by the time we left, because they had so much fun. They loved the river. They loved the bike riding and the hiking and all the cool breweries and coffee houses and, hiking up Mount Bachelor. I mean, there's so many cool things. And the kids, as we took that long drive home, a couple times were like, come on, Daddy, come on. Like, why not just look at some houses? Why not? And I got pretty quiet. I knew I've known you for so long. I knew in that moment as your wife, like, I can't pester you.
Yeah.
I can't keep questioning you, because that's no way to move.
Right.
I didn't want you to feel like, oh, great, my wife is dragging me up here, because then we wouldn't be happy.
A reluctance.
That reluctance wouldn't make us happy. So we came home. Those next couple weeks, I remember secretly looking at Zillow and thinking, well, maybe if I found a really cool place that was by the river. See, I know what you like. And so I thought, if I could find a house that was right on the river because you love the water so much, maybe that would help. And I think a couple times I tried to bring it up to you again. And then I realized this is a dead end. And when you weren't around, the kids would come to me and say, Mom, like, they still wanted us to talk about it. And I would say to them over and over again, if you really want to see some type of movement or some type of change, you can't bug and pester Daddy. I go, but you can pray.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yep.
And so let's just kind of commit to that. Now, what ended up happening in those next few weeks, I think is really what shaped our confidence to step forward, because it was, I think, a week before our wedding anniversary, our 18th wedding anniversary. And during COVID, you and I would go on this 10-mile bike ride.
Yeah.
It was 10 miles round trip from our house. We would get up early in the morning. You and I love getting up early in the morning and having our coffee together. And so you and I would ride up from our house along the coast. And we'd stop at a coffee house. We'd grab a coffee, and then we would ride home. Sometimes we'd sit at the coffee house too. And I remember that the week before our anniversary, you, out of the blue, sent me a Zillow listing of a house in Bend. And I was in shock. I couldn't believe it, because I knew, okay, I need to just stop talking to him about it. He knows that I and the kids would love to explore the possibility of living in Bend.
Yeah.
But I also knew I don't want to have an unhappy household. I don't want this. I don't want bitterness. I don't want resentment. I don't want this to, because the other thing is too, I knew that if we went up there and it blew up in our face and you weren't able to find a job and like we really struggled, I would be the one to blame. But I knew if we both went in with that risk, with that step of faith, and it blew up in our face, we would be side by side working through that. There wouldn't be blame. It'd be like, we stepped into this together. And I really longed for that. I wanted, I've always valued being on your team and knowing that you have my back, I have your back, and that we can get through anything together. And so when you sent me that listing, I was really surprised.
Yeah, I mean, at that moment, right? It was you were wanting to explore. The kids, were wanting to explore. It's been a few weeks at this point since we got back, and I finished my school year, so I was technically unemployed at the moment, and what happened every year really for the previous few years was because I was a temporary teacher, and there wasn't a lot of teaching jobs in Southern California. I was at the end of the year always having to interview either at the same school, but most of the times it was I had to go look at a different school because they were cutting teachers. And since I was usually the last one hired, I was typically out of a job. So this I was at this moment, when I sent you that, it was like, you know what, I don't have like stability in terms of my job anyways. It's not like I've been at this job for 15 years and I'm leaving that. I'm like kind of a new hire right now, even though I've been teaching for so long. So that was part of it where it was like, okay, I could just leave and get a new job, whether it be teaching or not, up in Oregon. And then I knew that the rent that we were paying down here versus that link that I sent you was significantly cheaper, so I didn't have to pull that salary that I was currently making, up there either. So that was another positive. So I think, and again, we talked how it was the COVID year, and it was just like a weird year, right? And I knew if I was to get another job teaching, maybe at the same school or not, it was probably going to be online anyways. So I'm like, well, I don't love that, and so even if I have to switch careers, like I'm fine with it because I don't want to be teaching online. I don't know. So there's just like a lot of those little things, and it just made more sense to pull the trigger if we're going to do it. Like, and I was kind of on board just because of those, some of those things that I just mentioned, but yeah, so that's why I sent you that and said, maybe I'm kind of open to that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And that, in that moment, I jumped all over that.
Yeah.
I was like, all right, here we go. He's open. And that was very exciting to me. And so
pretty sure you called the U-Haul right then and there.
Well, then I was like, well, let's apply. And we applied, I think, to a few houses.
Yeah.
And we've always, our entire marriage, have rented. I mean, affording a house in Southern California with a teaching job, and then, my online running, and even with my sports contracts with the 2 kids and having to work through some debt, like, it was difficult.
Yeah.
And so we were looking at these rental properties and we're like, wow, we're totally going to get approved.
Yeah.
And one by one, we were rejected.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why we were rejected from renting these houses was because we did not have jobs lined up in Bend.
Yeah, I didn't have a job.
Mm-hmm.
You could move yours because it was online essentially, but it would always come down to me, like, Eddie doesn't have a job.
Yeah. And sometimes people are nervous to rent to people that are contractors that don't have like that pay stub. And so I got a little nervous at first because I was like, okay, this is weird. Like, our whole family, for whatever reason, is actually considering this idea of moving out of state, leaving everything behind.
Mm-hmm.
And we feel at peace about it. We feel like, yeah, let's go do this.
Mm-hmm.
But we keep on getting hit with some dead ends.
Yeah.
Like renting is not working out. And we were putting on, so we hadn't told anyone in our family we were considering this, except for the references. So Kyle and Natalie Coleman knew, the Fletchers knew, and so they were always our references.
Yeah.
And they were being called. So the rental properties were calling them.
Mm-hmm.
And so saying, hey, tell us about the McRaes. Are they a good fit? But then it always came down to, sorry, Eddie doesn't have a job here.
Yeah.
And on the morning of our anniversary, you and I did our bike ride.
Yep.
So June 22nd, 2020 came around. And we were waiting for this one house to get back to us. It was a house that we really liked. It was very close to the river. It had good space in it. It just seemed so ideal.
Yeah.
And as we rode along, we knew that we'd be hearing from them like within the hour. As we rode along, there was a lot of discussion that was going on. Like, isn't this weird? Like, isn't this so weird that we're actually like considering doing this? Like, why is it that we even considered this in the first place? But then, you kind of look back at your track record and you're like, well, we've done this before. And what came out of it, it was challenging. It was hard. We missed family. We got homesick, all those things. But a lot of amazing things came out of our move to Washington, D.C. And here we are, again, considering moving out of the state, now with our 2 teen kids. And everything about this idea sounds wild, but you and I have a lot of peace about it. Yeah. And it's such an incredible feeling to have that same kind of peace together, to have that desire together. And so I think even more so, that's why I wanted to explore it. And we got to the coffee house. I think you ordered my coffee for me, or maybe it was vice versa. One of us took the call.
That's a crazy
One of us took
detail.
Call. It was Phil's coffee.
Yeah, I remember
One of us took the call, and they said, you're not approved.
Yeah.
And it came down to the job again. I remember being very sad.
Yeah.
Like really sad. And so here it was, our anniversary, and which then led us into a really good conversation about, let's give this one more try. Let's drive up to Bend tomorrow.
Yeah.
Something we weren't planning on doing.
Yeah, because the kids were out of school, obviously.
Kids were out of school.
It was summer, I didn't have a job.
Yeah.
You were able to do online. We're like, hey, we got time. Like, we're
yeah.
Not, let's go. Let's go for a couple days.
Yeah, let's go. I said, will you take an opportunity? We'll go up there. We will explore what options are presented to us and really try to understand why the whole family is stoked about doing this.
Yeah.
And I even said, maybe we'll get up there the second time and be like, no.
Yeah.
Like that was just on a whim. Like, what were we thinking? And maybe it will be closed door after closed door, and we'll just be like, no, that's fine. And I agreed, you agreed. We will then come home and you'll start looking for a teaching job.
Yep.
And maybe we'll look to moving to a place that's a little bit bigger than what we're in. Because that was the thing too. The house that we were currently in was, we moved there when the kids were little.
Yeah.
And now as teenagers. Yeah. And it was a very small house. And we're like, it would be nice to have something a little bit bigger that, maybe we'll stay in for a very long time. And so we were just looking in the neighborhood, looking for a floor plan that was just, I think we wanted like one more bedroom.
Yeah.
But anyway, I said, why not? Why not just drive up to Bend tomorrow? We'll get an Airbnb or see if we can stay with the Fletchers again. We'll go up for 3 days. And if we cannot either land you a job or find an option for us to live, we'll come home and it won't be a big deal. Like, what do we have to lose? Honestly, what do we have to lose by doing that? And we started talking about how decisions that we've made throughout our life, or things that have scared us, or things that we think about but maybe don't want to try because of, the risk of failure, or letting people down, or people not happy about, the choices that we're making, how so often we don't try stuff because of that. And I thought, the thing that has always feared me in my life is getting to the end of my life and having regrets about not trying something. And especially when it's something that you feel strongly about. There are some wild, crazy ideas, Eddie, you've been married to me long enough, that are not good ideas.
Yeah, definitely.
We could talk a long time about that. And I think that's also why I just have so much confidence in you as my life partner, because you have kept me balanced, and you balance me out in so many ways. Like I'm fly by the seat of my pants. Like if I come up with so many different ideas and day in and day out, and I love that I have you to bounce those off of.
Yeah.
And I love that we can talk through some of them. But when you actually entertain them too, I'm like, okay, there's something in here. Yeah. Like this is actually good stuff. And so that was our discussion, is I don't want to look back 5-10 years from now and say, man, don't you wish we would have just at least tried to see what that was all about? If you and I are now desiring it together, like, man, like let's just go like figure it out. We'll take 3 days. And we rode our bikes home. And we said, kids, go pack your bags. We're leaving for Bend in the morning. And they were both like, what? Oh,
What?
okay. Yeah. All right. Awesome. And they were excited. And it was like, okay, we're going on an adventure. And it was like, well, what are we doing? And I was like, I don't know. And as we drove up there, I remember we booked an Airbnb on our drive up there, and the Fletchers were sending us listings for rental. And then at one point I remember this because we just passed Mount Shasta in the drive. And it was either Monique or Slater. They're like, dude, you guys should actually consider buying. And you and I looked at each other. We're like, there's no way.
No way.
There's no way because, you had some college debt from your major, but also you had your master's from a private college that we were trying to pay off. We had some credit card debt, and we're just like, dude, there's no and we don't. I have a contractor job. Eddie doesn't have a job at all. What bank is going to approve a loan? And we're like, there's just no way that would ever happen. That's been a dream of ours. I mean, it's been a dream forever for you to own a home. Mm-hmm. So that's what we were driving into.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I feel like all of those things pointed to there's no way that's even, because it never crossed our mind, right? Like it never, ever crossed our mind
we always wrote it off to buy
a house.
Yeah.
Like we had decent credit just because we had debt all the time. We were just trying to pay it, on time. So we had decent credit score, but other than that, everything else was like, no, there's no way, especially not having a job. But that was the first time we even that even crossed our mind because someone else had told us, to entertain it. But yeah, that came out of left field. We're like, what? No, we can't do that. And I think because we rented so long and that's just kind of like, that's what we're going to do. And two, it was like rent for us moving up there to rent was like, okay, rent just screams temporary, right? Where we knew hey, if we go up there and we rent for a year, we're not locked in, and kids hate it, we hate it, we can always come back, right? There's something freeing when it is a rental, right? And so that was kind of on my mind at least. And so buying a house was more permanent, and so not only the financial part was not doable, but then the long-term permanent never crossed my mind either, right? So yeah, it was an interesting thought to entertain when she said that.
And you bring up a good point too. You said we had rented for so long. We had rented for 18 years, and you and I had talked about this in a previous podcast, how it's so easy when we're pursuing goals or when we think about our abilities or what we're lacking in our abilities. So often it's because of what we're used to doing.
Yeah.
Or maybe something that someone told us or that made us believe, maybe we had a past failure. And so we just believed and gave ourselves a label that really isn't true. But we sometimes will operate in the same box because we feel like, well, that's where we belong. This is just how I do life. And this is what's going to, this keeps me comfortable. Stepping out of this, stepping out of our home in Southern California, leaving friends, family, community behind, what our kids have always known, all of that is uncomfortable. And we were aware of that. But because we had done it before, we also understood, hey, we'd done it before, and look at us now. We're fine.
We survived, yeah.
We survived. A lot of great things came from that. So I think we were really holding on to that.
Yeah.
I think that's why I love this idea, be a professional failure. I've said this so often. It just means you've tried. Every time we fail or we miss the mark or things don't turn out the way they want them to, those are lessons. Those are actually confidence builders, because if you're here today, that means you've survived all your failures and setbacks and losses and heartbreaks. You're still here. That means you're supposed to keep trying. And so when we thought about this idea of buying, our discussion in home always was there's no way we could ever, the neighborhood we were in, it was we couldn't afford any of these houses. We couldn't afford to buy the house that we were renting. And so it started to become, this is just how we do life. We're going to rent until we die. Even though for as long as I had known you, even before we got married, it was your dream to buy a house. You always dreamed of owning a home. And so as we made our way till Bend, we're now just a couple hours outside of Bend. I was like, well, let's just see how much houses cost. I don't think we even explored how much houses were costing. So at this time, there wasn't the market explosion yet, but the rates had just dropped significantly. I think rates were like 2.5% or something, just outrageous. I mean, historically low. And we were like, wow, houses are significantly cheaper than they are, you could buy a house and the mortgage payment is lower than what we were paying for rent. And that just kind of flipped our minds. We're like, wow, that would be amazing, but I don't know how we're going to get a loan. I don't know how this is going to come out. So the Fletchers sent us, I don't know if it was their realtor or something. They kind of hooked us up with was it Ken?
It was the realtor, yeah. It was the one that they used.
It was the one that they used. And on our drive up there, he made a list of 10 listings. It was 10 houses that I think. And so by the time we got into Bend, because we have pictures of this, of our kids, we rolled up to a park that was facing the Deschutes River. And the kids were familiar with that because we had just come up there a month before.
Yeah.
And so they got out and they started playing around on the grass. And you and I got on a call with Ken and we hadn't even checked into our Airbnb yet. We literally rolled into town. So this is essentially day one of being in Bend. It was in the evening. And he's like, yeah, let's meet up tomorrow morning at 8:00. We'll get going. I have 10 listings to show you. And, we'll take a look at these houses and then, and then we can contact the loan agency and see if we can get you guys a loan. And we're like, okay, cool. And so we get off the phone. We look at each other. We're like, yeah, right. But okay, let's just go have fun looking at houses. And the mortgage payment, we can definitely do that.
Yeah.
Securing the loan, I don't think so.
Yeah.
It was literally going to be a miracle for somebody to give us a loan. That's what we felt. If this is supposed to happen, it is going to be a divine act of God. This is going to happen because we've never considered this. We've never ventured out to do it. And from our point of view, we just wouldn't qualify. But because we had never even tried, we really didn't know all the steps in the first place. And I think that it was a big lesson for us. How do you know how something's going to turn out if you don't even try? But
so
we were sitting in that place of, well, we've never done that. We've never considered it. We've always considered ourselves renters. We will never buy a house. And, according to us, we're just not people who are, we're not equipped to buy. But we had never tried. We'd never tried. And so that was the first beautiful story. I mean, I say beautiful, amazing area of growth and faith, I think, for both of us.
Yep.
Because the next day, so that night we checked into our little Airbnb rooms. It was a couple bedrooms in a house.
Yeah.
And so we stayed there, I think, the first night, and then we ended up going to the Fletchers the second night. But so we stayed in. I remember laying on the bed, and you and I were looking at all the different listings. And I think at this point, too, we had started the online process of applying for a loan.
Yeah, we did.
And seeing what we would qualify. And apparently you can kind of find out pretty quickly what you qualify for. I think we then expected at some point the next day that we would be in contact with Sean. And so the next morning we get up, we get our cup of coffee, we meet up with Ken at house number 1. And house number 1 was on a street called Mount Hope. And the streets surrounding it were Mount Faith. And what was the third one?
I don't remember. I think it was just those two, wasn't it?
Was it just Mount Hope, Mount Faith? I should pull it up. I thought there was a third one.
I think it was just those two.
But that was I remember turning on to that street.
The street name.
And, I'm a details girl. And I'm always looking for the signs and wonder and blessings in everything. I think that is been something that I've held on to throughout my life, that no matter how hard or confusing or unknowing I am in a situation, be hyper-focused on what the blessings are and what are the signs of hope. And so we turned on to that street. And I didn't tell any of you guys this, but we pulled into that house. And as soon as Ken opened up that front door and I stepped in, this like overwhelming feeling came over me. And I said, this is our house. And Eddie, will you tell us a little bit about this house? Because it's pretty shocking that I say this is our house, because aesthetically, superficially, when you walk inside,
it was not a great look. Yeah, it
was not appealing.
So when you say it was our house and you had this sense of peace, it was that's a stretch, because it was
no one else did.
Nobody on the planet was thinking that. I mean, I think when we walk in, it's just this small house. You can see
the whole house from the front door. You do
pretty much, right? Like you can see the kitchen, and it's an open, family room right there, and then just to the left is the hallway to the couple bedrooms.
To the 3 bedrooms,
and it's very simple, but
it was 1,000 square feet,
and it was all like brown.
It was brown head to toe, from the ceiling to the carpet. To the countertops.
Countertops were brown.
It was the same color.
Brown, cabinets. It was just completely outdated. And
it was ugly.
If you were going to show someone a house and be like, hey, this is a winner, nobody's saying that's the one. Like if price aside, right? If you're like not telling you how much it is, or showed you a couple houses, that's not the one that you're like, yes, that's the winner, right? You're not saying that because of what it looked like. So anyways, so that was the first house we went to. You had this sense of like, okay, this is it. And then we went on to a couple other ones, and that were, a little bit more pricier. And in fact, we did really like the one
on Duck Lane.
Yes, Duck Lane.
Yeah.
That was a nice, it looked better on the inside. It was bigger.
It was bigger.
Like this
had that great room upstairs where like visitors could come and stay with us.
The outside looked cool. I mean, it was a nice, very nice house. And then we saw some other ones that were nice, that were updated,
out of our range,
but were out of the. Well, it's funny because we didn't really know exactly how much at that point, right? That
Not
we
yet.
were, because he was just kind of showed us a variety and wanted us to tell him what one we kind of liked before we found out how much. But we kind of knew, ballpark, I think, but we weren't given from the mortgage company like, hey, this is the ceiling. So the ones that we saw, and you had the piece about the one. The other ones were like not really close to the river. They were on the other side of the city, and we're like, we don't really want to be over there, even though they were nicer and newer. And then the one on the Duck Call Lane, Duck Call Lane was probably the winner in terms of appeal and what it looked like. And we found out that was just over what we would qualify for, essentially, right?
Yes.
Yeah. This episode is brought to you by Janji. Janji makes running apparel for everyday exploration with designs, materials, and features meant to help runners go farther. Each Janji collection is informed by a different part of the world, where they collaborate with local artists on unique designs, and they partner with clean water nonprofits. This is their way of celebrating exploration and supporting the people and the places that inspire them. Also, 2% of all the sales are donated to clean water programs around the world, and as of now, they've donated almost $1 million to clean water solutions around the globe. And I've been wearing the 5-inch AFO Middle Short Ultra, extremely comfortable, and it has a recycled polyester. It's fast drying, smooth with a soft elastic waistband, and they have 6 pockets and a high vis reflective detailing. Janji is available at REI stores as well as janji.com, And if you use code CHOOSESTRONG, you will get 10% off of your order. That's JANJI.com, code CHOOSESTRONG.
Yeah, so there was two, and as I said before, I didn't tell the family how strongly I felt about the one on Mount Hope Lane. But what's really interesting is, so we go and we look at all these houses, and the kids had fun, going up and down the stairs and exploring. And I think one or two still had tenants in them. There was one really sweet old lady that showed us around. Her house was so beautiful. But when we finished doing all that, I think we went and we parked at the same park again. Do you remember?
Yeah, we did.
And the kids got out and they're playing by the river and just kind of hanging out. And we got on the call with the, I guess, loan officer. And he let us know the amount that we qualified for. Yeah. And that meant that there was one house that we qualified for.
The only house that we qualified for.
The only house was the first house we stepped to.
That you had the piece about, yes.
Yeah, on Mount Hope Lane. Yep. And so we began the process of trying to secure that loan. Yeah. And it was wild and very, very, it was really stressful, but I remember that night. So then we got our stuff because our Airbnb was kind of weird. We didn't know that the owners were going to be there with us. Remember that?
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
And it was really odd and super uncomfortable. And yeah, so then the Fletchers, and they have like 2 extra guest bedrooms. They have a big, gorgeous home out there, a lot of space. And they're like, dude, come and stay with us. They had moved from their one house into this other home on the other side of Bend. And so they're like, come stay with us. So we went over there, and this now had been, we were only 36 hours removed from being in Huntington Beach and getting rejected by a rental house. Yeah. And saying, let's just go up and discover what we can. So for our listeners, if you can just imagine the whirlwind of emotions, the change of events within 36 hours, we went from maybe we should just rent a different house here in Huntington Beach, try to find one that has a little bit more room as the kids are getting older, to this is so sad that we really want to move to Bend, but we're being rejected right and left, to, hey, let's go on a 3-day trip and see what the possibilities are. And now here we were putting in an offer to buy a home. Yep. That was never in our mind.
Never.
At the start of 2020 was in our mind. I mean, most people, when they're going to buy a home, they're leading up to it
there's a lot of prep.
For a long time, whether it's a full year, a couple years. People will say, the 5-year plan is, we're going to save, we're going to get rid of this debt, we're going to prep, we're going to make sure all our finances are in order, and then we're really going to search out the area that we want to live in. So for us, it was just, we were pinching ourselves and looking at each other, like laughing, like, are we really doing this? Like, we are now we're applying for a loan. We're going to put in an offer on this house. So what we did was, when we realized, hey, as we begin the loan process, this is what you are capable of securing. We then turned to our realtor and said, okay, we'll put an offer in on this house. And even his feedback was not very hopeful.
Yeah.
At this time now, so now it's the end of June, the market now is starting to build. So all of our listeners, you start to remember, all the big cities, especially in America, were exploding. So whether that was Nashville or Austin, we think of Boise, Idaho, Bend, Oregon, even here in California, a lot of big cities, there's a lot of movement. People were moving, and so our realtor said, hey, was there 20 offers on it already?
I can't remember.
There was a lot of offers. Yeah. And we said, we want to put an offer in on that house. And Ken was an award-winning realtor. He was the best performing, highest performing in his company. And he let us know, he said, Eddie, Sally, there is either one or two other realtors down the hallway from me who are writing up proposals for the exact same house.
Yeah, that's right.
And for whatever reason, I had a lot of peace about that.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it was nerve-wracking at first, but then it was like, you know what? If we don't get it, that's our answer. That's why we came up here.
Yeah.
And what you had to do within those 24 hours. So that was in the evening. Okay, we're going to put an offer in. So Ken went to work to get on the offer. We talked to Sean. He's like, all right, we're going to start this loan process and make sure all your paperwork goes through. So you went into overdrive. And you're pulling up our hard drive on everything, all the paperwork. I think you had even brought the paperwork with you because you're scanning stuff and tax returns and all this. This is all new to us. So those of you listening that know what it goes into to buying a home, securing a loan, there's a lot of paperwork and you feel really exposed. I mean, remember Sean, as he's looking at our bank statements, do you remember? You start going through all these bank statements. And he at one point said, wow, you like to eat donuts. I thought you were a runner. Do you remember when he said that? It was so funny. But I thought, gosh, this guy's really thorough.
Yeah.
I didn't realize they go after like every line item of your bank statement. And we're just learning it as we went. And what I really loved especially was every step that we were taking, we were informing our kids about it. We would sit down and explain to them, okay, this is now what they're doing. Okay, this is part of the process. Okay, when you buy a home, when you apply for a loan. And you and I realized, we're like, dude, this is our first time learning any of this stuff. And these tools that we're teaching our kids, we're letting them see full exposure, everything.
Mm-hmm.
And then the kids asking us hard questions. Well, how come we can't get this home? Well, we don't qualify. Why not? And then talking to them about debt and finances and the importance of savings and all these things that are really powerful tools for youth. I mean, I wish, I had said, like, man, I wish that youth, that schools included every year they're learning about finances. Can you imagine what better situations people would be in if they learned about finances at a much younger age, how to manage their money, how to save, the importance of making good investments, all of that. So it was a really cool learning opportunity for all of us, but also for our kids. They're watching this story unfold. And then the next day, so this is now day 3.
Mm-hmm.
The next day, you and I think I had to get online with like the tax. Remember that? We had to get online with like there's something going on with our taxes. We needed like a statement or something. And those offices were backed up because of COVID. Like everything was a lot slower or something.
Yes,
like we should have gotten something back and it hadn't come yet. So we were asking for this paperwork to be expedited. And
That's
it was
right.
like, fat chance of that happening. There was a lot of stress, but Ken said, come to the office. I think it was like 3:00 in the afternoon. We were supposed to come and we were going to sign just a big stack of paper, of paperwork. And we were also waiting for a phone call from Sean, like around the same time, saying whether or not we had gotten approved for the loan.
Yeah.
And we were both sitting on the floor of Slater Fletcher's office. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And we're sweating because we're like, both of these things have to align.
Yep.
We have to get approved by the loan and we have to go to the office and show them our approval in order to sign these papers to put in the offer on this house that like 20 other people want.
Yeah.
And as the way Ken put it, he said, Sally, Eddie, this is the last house near the river in Bend at this price point.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm sure other ones are going to pop up. No. He was wrong. It literally was the last one because weeks after that, the market changed. And so we're waiting. We get approved. I think it was within 30 minutes. Because remember, we rush out to the car, put the kids in the car. We rush over to the realtor's office and we go upstairs and we sit in these seats. And he's like, all right. Pushes the stack of paper over to us and it was just sign. I mean, it was like 10 minutes of just signing these papers.
Yeah, that was an interesting, like just those 3 days, right? Like it was just crazy. Like just the whole, whirlwind of things that we did that we've never done before. So we were just in the dark on so much of that stuff. And sitting in his office was really odd, knowing that we're like trying to put an offer on this house.
And
like,
nobody knew back
so
home.
Strange.
Nobody knew that we were doing that. The other thing is as soon as Sean called us and said, you guys have been approved for the loan, I mean, I think I started crying. And I looked at you bewildered because I was like, well, I actually questioned, like, is that the most that we can do? Because we really were going back and forth but between the duck house and the Hope house.
We didn't have enough for the
But he said if Eddie had a job, then you would have easily, if you would have had the salary that he has down in California, that teaching job, you could have gone a lot more.
Right.
This would have really been a different situation. But Sally, we are basing this all on you. And he's like, the one thing that you have going for you is that every year in the last 5 years, your income has grown. Mm-hmm. And so there's been this positive projection. And so that helps, both your scores are, they're good. Mm-hmm. They're not excellent, but they're good. Mm-hmm. And so I feel confident giving you this, but it was the bare minimum and only the one house was it. So it wasn't like we had all these options and several people could take our offer. And even that, it was this, let's say we got the house, you don't have a job. Right. Like we essentially are going into this blindly on our own with no one else back home knowing. Mm-hmm. And we are going to make a commitment to buy a home. Mm-hmm. And 36 hours ago, this was not part of the plan, mm-hmm. but it's moving so fast. And really, we had peace about it. Yeah. We had excitement about it. The kids were excited about it. We were all hoping and praying that this would come true for us. Mm-hmm. And so we got that approval. It was literally like a 30-minute window. And we rush over to the realtor's office to put in that offer. We sign all the papers. He's like, all right, I'm going to submit this tonight. Mm-hmm. And the next morning, do you remember why we had to drive home the next morning?
Because of my
teaching,
yeah.
You were going to get a phone call from a principal or superintendent mm-hmm. who was going to ask you about a job. So I think when we were up there or right before we left, you needed to give an answer about accepting a teaching position, which I don't think that you wanted. I think it was it a kindergarten position?
Yeah, it was for a weird, I can't remember actually, but I liked the principal, I remember, but I did not like the position. And I was doing due diligence about as the man of the house and getting, keeping a job lined up. Because mm-hmm. so, I was open to going up to Bend and changing it up and looking for a job up there. But just in case, if that all didn't, go through, like I needed to make sure if we were going to stay in Southern California, like I needed to make sure I had a job lined up. Right. And so, so I still kind of had my foot in the Southern California, teaching pool. And, so that, I think it was that either that day or the next day.
It was the next day.
I was supposed to give an answer because they did offer me this position that I didn't love, but it was like, hey, it's a job.
And you would have to go in and sign for it too.
Yeah. So that was the thing where I literally had to sign a contract for a year mm-hmm. and and I was already on kind of like, hey, this guy, is kind of going from job to job as is. So if I sign that contract, the worst thing for me to do is to break a contract, right? Like I just could not do that. So if I knew, hey, if I was going to go sign that contract, I was locked in for that year. Mm-hmm. And if we were going to entertain this again, it'd have to be a year later.
A year later. Yeah. That's right. So everything felt a little intense, but everything was moving and changing so fast.
Yes.
And I know you and I couldn't help but realize that something greater here than we could actually see was happening. Because at some point you just have to be like, all right, like this is genuinely out of our control, but for whatever reason, all the pieces are falling into place in ways that we only thought were impossible. Mm-hmm. So the fact that I was on my own approved for a house loan as a contractor. Yeah. That was wild. Like we laughed about it. We're like, how in the world?
Yeah.
Like how? And we got up the next morning and Ken had said, you will know between like 9 and 10 o'clock in the morning whether or not you got the house because there are so many offers going in and really the owner just has his pick. And I remember thinking, man, I wish that we could have met the owner. Mm-hmm. Anything that I could do or send him a picture or anything. But we had no one had any connection or ability to connect with the owner of the home at all. So it was really blindly. The owner was going to be just kind of looking at all of these applications, looking at what the offers are, and kind of choosing off that. Mm-hmm. And as we drove further and further away from Bend.
Yeah, we started going home at this point.
Yeah, we got up really early in the morning. And I think that it was like 5 a.m. So we were like 4 hours in. 9 o'clock hits. Mm-hmm. And we stopped to grab a cup of coffee. I know you and I were really tired. I mean, it was an emotionally draining.
Oh, yeah.
I think I had cried a couple times because it was just so intense, both tears of joy and just apprehension, all the things. And
it's just draining where you have so many question marks.
Yes.
Right? There's like, am I moving? Did we get a house? Am I going back to work there? Like, are we not? Like, there's just so many like what ifs or what's going to happen. So that's just draining,
And you're dealing with your kids' emotions.
Yeah.
So as a mom, it's like, man, we're getting hopes up, dreams up, but also even if they're stoked to move, this is still going to be a very difficult move.
Yeah.
Transition, even if you're excited about the next step, it's like when you get married or you take a new job, like all those things are so exciting, but that doesn't mean it's still a little scary.
Yep.
You're still a little timid. There's a lot of unknowns that sometimes change no matter what it looks like, whether it's changing towards something better, it can still be hard.
Yeah.
And so I had a lot of that in my mind. I'm thinking about the kids and how this is going to impact them. And also the fact that nobody at home knows what we're doing. And like, are we going to get support? Are people going to be excited for us? Is this something that is going to be received in a positive way? Like essentially we're making a really big life change. And so we're getting our hopes and dreams up. And, so the sun rises, we get our cup of coffee. We're driving along as the kids are asleep in the back of the truck. Mm-hmm. And 9 o'clock comes, 9:30 comes. And I knew that you were supposed to get a call, I think it was around 11 or 12, because the timing of this is so incredible. Mm-hmm. This is absolutely amazing. I kept on checking Zillow because the house was on Zillow.
Yeah.
And when a house is in escrow, when it's, it's the owner has taken an offer, it's kind of coming off the market, it'll say that, and I keep refreshing because time is going by. We're not hearing anything. I keep refreshing my email, hoping I'll see an email come in from Ken. I'm checking my text. Maybe Ken will text me. Time keeps going by. And then I think we are now 20 or 30 minutes away from your call with the school. And I remember kind of just staring forward, looking out in the distance. We're kind of like in no man's land now. We're like in the middle of California. And my heart got really sad. And I thought, man, I don't think we're going to get this house. Like we would have heard, because it's now, 11 o'clock, 11:30. And, he said we'd hear sometime between 9 and 11. And I go on Zillow and I refresh Zillow and I see that the Mount Hope house is off the market. Mm-hmm. And tears start to fill my eyes. And I realize I actually turn to you and I start to say, it's off the market. And in that moment, Ken calls. And I put it on speaker and it was like my heart is stopping.
Yeah.
And he says, you guys got the house. And immediately, like, just tears all around.
Yeah.
We just start crying. And I'm like, there's no way.
Yeah.
And he's like, what's so amazing, you guys, is there were people who put offers on this house that were going to pay all cash.
Right.
There were cash offers. There were incentive offers. He's like, I don't know why he chose yours, but yours was the offer that he wanted. So this is amazing for you guys. Congratulations. I'm stoked. I'm not going to take too much of your time. I know you guys are traveling, but let's chat tomorrow, or, I'm going to send you over some stuff via email. And so we hang up the phone and it was just, we were in shock. It was, you and I looked at each other. We're like, we're moving to Bend. And I'm like now crying, just like this dream is realized. you are going to own a home, Eddie.
Yeah.
It is going to be in the place that you dreamed of when we first got married 18 years ago. And I look back at the kids and they are just overjoyed, so excited. And I turn around and I start to walk them through every step of the journey. I say, what is important in this moment is that you remember everything that happened in the lead up to this, because we cannot deny that this is a massive step of faith that was orchestrated in such a beautiful way. There were so many odds stacked against us, and yet at the same time we decided to try.
Yeah.
You know, there was in our mind, we would have done ourselves a lot of regret had we not just stepped out and tried. Yeah. And we agreed, we'll go up, and if every door shuts, that's fine. We're done researching Bend. We all have this piece about going. We all want to go. Let's at least just explore that and see what happens. And something greater than what we dreamed up happened. We weren't going up there to rent. We now got to go up there and own our very first home.
Yeah.
And literally 15 minutes later, the call comes through from the school district, and you got off the freeway and you took that call and you let them know, I'm not going to be teaching next year.
Yeah. As soon as I took that call and said that, then it was like, it was real. I was like, dude, I literally am moving now. Like that. I just said no to a job, which I was leading up to that for years. I was like waiting, like, give me a job. Like, I want to say yes. So like to turn down a job, that was big, right? That was a huge moment. That was kind of scary, to be honest.
Absolutely. This episode of Choose Strong is brought to you by Manukora Honey. And if you have been a listener for any stretch of time, you know how much Eddie and I love honey. So we are very excited about this one. It is getting colder. It is time to think about presents for the people you love, and the miracle of nature just fell on my lap at the perfect time. And that's a rare super honey that is 100% natural and has some unique properties. Manukora makes Manuka honey, a single origin honey that comes from New Zealand, where the bees only feed on the nectar of the Manuka tea tree, making honey that is pure, rich, and complex, with a creamier texture that is on a completely different level from the normal honey you find at the supermarket. You can use it as you would any other honey, but what puts the super in Manuka honey is that it's super rich in antioxidants and prebiotics, 3 times more compared to regular honey. On top of that, it contains an antibacterial compound called MGO that can be found exclusively in Manuka honey. The bottom line is that these nutrients really support your optimal immune and digestive health, and it's delicious. This is the perfect way to treat myself with something that is going to keep me strong through the colder months, and the perfect gift for the people I love to keep them sweet and healthy too. The 850 plus honey has this creamy caramel texture that melts in your mouth and is unlike anything I've ever tried. I can grab a spoonful out of a jar, which I've been known to do many a times. I can put it in my favorite beverage or squeeze some honey out on some toast or oatmeal. I personally like honey peanut butter sandwiches. So delicious. If you head to manukora.com/Sally, you can get $25 off their starter kit, which comes with the MGO 850 plus Manuka honey, a free travel pack honey stick, a free wooden spoon, and also a free guidebook. It's the perfect gift for a loved one during this season. Now, I love the jar and squeeze bottle, but the extra pack of compostable honey sticks is perfect for whenever you're on the go. You can bring them with you when you're traveling or if you need a quick snack running errands, and they're the perfect energy boost if you're out for a run or at the gym, especially in this time of year. That's MANUKORA.com/Sally. Sally to get $25 off your starter kit. This is just the ultimate honey. Indulge and try some honey with superpowers from Manukora. So here it is, the end of June. We come back home and now it's time to tell everybody. And I think that, for our listeners who have ever considered making a big move, whether it's moving to a different county, out of state, overseas, the people in your life, like sometimes that's the hardest part of the transition because these are people you love.
Yeah.
These are people you do life with that you depend on. These are people who support you, your kids, or you yourself just in your life. And to say, hey, we're leaving. We're going to go live life somewhere else. Like that's hard. And I wrote this really long email. I sent it out. I shared like the story, this beautiful story in an email. We sent it out to all of our closest family and friends. We definitely got some mixed replies back, obviously out of like love.
Yeah.
Just people like, we're so excited for you, but obviously we're going to really miss you. And then we also got lots of questions like, really? Are you serious? That's crazy. That's wild. How can you? And I remember talking to a lot of moms who are like, wow, like, are you sure you want to do that? Like your kids are going to be in, Isaiah was going into 7th grade.
Yep.
I think I said 8th grade. He was going into 7th grade. Mackenzie was going into 9th grade. So we were taking our kids at pretty crucial times in their school years, in their life, where they're experiencing a lot of growth, a lot of change. For those of you with preteens and teens, that sometimes those can be the roughest times for kids. And yeah, so we had a lot of questions that we were answering, but we still also held to the idea of like, hey, we don't know how this is going to turn out. And you, during that time, all the way up until we even got the keys, did not have a job.
Yeah, I applied online to
every school in the area, every district.
Yeah, I applied to the district right away. As soon as we realized we're moving up there, I applied, and then your application goes into a pool of a sea of people, and I had to get approved through the state of Oregon to teach. I had to, go through that whole process, and wasn't getting any real feedback after a few weeks from there. So I just started applying to other things, trying to get something. To make some type of income before we got up there, essentially. And so I did get a job with FedEx. Remember, I ended up getting...
It was like at 2 a.m.
Yeah, it was just like, I just need something. I need to get a job. And so I had this online kind of interview and essentially got hired by FedEx. And then I can't remember what happened, but I said
you
I was
thought long and hard
go.
about it is what happened.
I
remember I was sad.
Yeah, you were like,
I was
Eddie,
really
like,
sad.
Come on, like we can find something else. Or
I go, you have a master's degree. Like, please do not pick up the graveyard.
But it was something, right?
I was just it was. Like, I mean, I think that's a really good.
I just needed to get
FedEx
something
is a great.
Yeah,
it was a great job to have. I was most concerned about the hours. I mean, I think that's what it was. It wasn't so much that you were working at FedEx. It was like, oh my gosh, like you're working the graveyard shift. I'm never gonna see you.
Yeah.
And that's a hard transition already, transitioning up there. But now it's gonna. I just didn't know how you were gonna be. So it's like, don't they have other shifts or they have something else? But I did admire that about you. You were like, okay, if I can't find a teaching job, I'm gonna find anything that I can find. And I think you even looked at Amazon, Home Depot, Costco.
Yeah, Home Depot was going to be my next one if I didn't get. But I got rejected by
everyone.
There was like this beverage like warehouse company. Yeah, there was all sorts of things. I was just trying to throw my name out there and trying to get. I
think we had friends down here at Costco.
Yes.
Who were gonna try to help you get a job up there. I know Costco is a great company to work for.
That's right. That was on the list.
But like all you had was that FedEx 2 a.m. shift.
Yep. And then I ended up landing a interview at a private school up there in Bend. And
very small private school.
Yeah, I remember having the interview. I had to teach a lesson online with kids. They had like 8 kids. Because at this time, again, it was virtual, right? Like they didn't know, what the call was going to be, if the schools were going to be open, if there was going to be online. Like, so I had this, we were up there at this point.
Well, I want to back up here because we had 6 weeks at home. From the time we came back home to when we moved, we had 6 weeks. And what happened in those 6 weeks was incredibly nerve-wracking because the loan agency, we thought we were going to lose the loan.
Oh, yeah.
Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
They had, I think there was like a miscalculation. There was something where it was like, hey, can you come up with some more money?
Yeah.
And we're like, wait, what? And so the loan, we didn't realize, like, there was a lot of processes that were taking place in different departments that are reviewing everything.
Yeah.
And I remember walking our house here in Huntington Beach in the middle of the night because I was so stressed out about it. And I thought, we're going to lose this house. And I don't know how we're going to come up with this, with this extra money. What was so crazy is one of my sponsors had, I don't know if it was they were behind or they had changed the way that they were paying me. It went from, that's what it was. It went from monthly to quarterly. And in that 6 weeks, they paid me a quarterly check. It was a nice size check.
Yeah.
And it was the money that we needed in order to secure this loan. And it was like just another thing that fell into place. And I just thought like, wow, every time we've been hit with a surprise or something that brings us anxiety, like something great happens, like something comes through. But I just remember that was like such a great lesson just in faith. Like if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. And it's completely out of my control. I can't make just thousands of dollars up here, especially that much money.
Yeah.
But how crazy that during that time, the infrastructure of one of the sponsors that I had was redoing their payments and thought, okay, so this is going to be for the next 3-4 months. Here's this big fat check.
Yeah.
I remember getting it in the mail and just crying. Do you remember this?
Yeah,
it
vaguely.
was unreal. Well, the thing was, we also had to be out of our house.
Yeah.
And because we were waiting for the loan to go through, I remember towards the end of July, so we moved like August 11th or something like that because the kids were going to start school like 2 weeks later. So we needed to be up there like a week before they started. And the cross country team was starting to train. And so we're like, oh, we need to get Mackenzie up there so she's not missing the training at Summit High School. And so we're like, we need to get up there. And so it was kind of like ambiguous as to when the official leaving date was for us. And so, but we also needed to be out of our house or else we're going to get charged rent again.
Yeah.
And so we just decided, okay, we're going to pick a day. This is when we are going to be out. And one of the things that became like almost a daily thing was hearing from the loan agency. I think I remember telling you how stressed out I was every time I saw Sean's name pop up because he was talking to me the most because I was on the loan. I was the head on the loan and I wasn't allowed to add you on the loan until after I secured it. So I had to have all the conversations. Right. And this is your expertise. This isn't mine. So I'd be out on a run. I can't tell you how many times I'd be out on a run and I'd see he would call and I'd stop in the middle of the trail and he'd be asking me some crazy question. Well, what about this? What is this? Can you explain this to me? Can you come up with more money here? Is there anything that I'm missing? Is there any family assets that you have or anyone that can loan you money? I mean, it was really crazy. I didn't realize it was going to be so stressful. And so the very last thing that was coming through was this tax document. Do you remember? We had to get this tax document. And it was, like I said, everything in the government had been slowed down and they needed this tax document. So we're waiting for it to come in the mail. The other thing was that he was relying heavily upon was your contract with a job, anything to prove that you had secured a job. So me getting the loan, I was securing that, but like to help us solidify this, we need to see that Eddie actually has a job up here. And even as we were driving, even as we were booking the U-Haul, this is what I remember, there was so much uncertainty. And I remember saying, what if we get up here? What if we get up to Bend, Eddie? And the loan falls through. You hear this happening.
Oh yeah.
So they call it the escrow falls out. They weren't able to follow through with the commitment. The loan didn't happen. And I thought, we're going to be that statistic. And, it was hard to believe that I had gotten the loan in the first place. And I said, see, it was kind of going back to all my insecurities. See, I knew this would never happen. And the day the moving truck arrived, the mailman came walking up to me when we were loading up the last of the boxes and handed me the tax document, because I remember having to tell your parents, you need to come and check our mail every day. Yeah. You might have to expedite this this document up to Bend because it is not here, and we're loading up the last of the furniture. And up walks our mailman, and I was like, there's no way. And I cried again. Here's the tax document. We immediately sent it over to Sean. He was like, great. We scanned it right there with our phone, sent it up as a PDF via email, but he actually needed the actual document. So I remember, okay, we are going to be hand delivering these to you, but here you can at least see them for now. And then you still didn't have the job, but we were waiting for that interview. So we load up, pack up the truck. Yeah. Say our goodbyes to everybody. A lot of mixed feelings about us moving for all of us. I mean, we all cried. It wasn't like we left like, woohoo. Right. Like there was a lot going on still. We were going to miss our family and friends. We were leaving our family behind. So, I'm looking in the truck, you're driving the U-Haul with the dog, with Champ in the front seat with you. He's like, buckled in. And then I have Isaiah and Mackenzie with me in the truck, and I look over and they're both just tears coming down their face. They're like, we're excited, but just, I can't believe it's actually happening. And that's really common for kids. It's like, it's hard for them to see the big picture of things, to process all of it. And so as we go further and further down the freeway, and they're realizing we're not going to live here anymore. We're not going to be with our friends and by the beach and all the streets and places that we know anymore. And I'm like gripping the steering wheel because I'm thinking, what if Eddie doesn't get this job? Yeah. And we're thinking that we're going to drive up to Bend and we don't even know where we're going to park our U-Haul. Yeah. Because we were hoping that by the time we got to Bend that we would get the keys. And Sean kept on giving us this back and forth. Oh yeah, you'll get them within the week. I think it was like a Thursday that we drove. He's like, you should get them maybe like Tuesday or Wednesday of next week. And I'm like, oh my gosh. So our first stop was at Andy and Leslie Vandenacker's home. Yep. And we parked our U-Haul in their neighborhood, and we stayed there overnight. And then we arrived in Bend at night, and the Fletchers were like, bring the U-Haul here, and you guys can stay here until you get the keys to your house. Yeah. And it was a very daunting feeling for me. You just kind of settle into this, as a mom and dad, you want to have that stability. You want to have a place to call home. You want to make sure that, you want to tell your kids, like, it's all going to be okay. It's going to work out. And in the back of both of our minds, we're like, this still has the possibility of falling through. The next day you had a online call. You had prepared as you were saying earlier, a lesson plan. I remember going to like Target or Marshall's and buying you a shirt. Do you remember? Because everything had been packed away. I went and bought you a button-down shirt. Yeah, okay, so that was stressful in the sense that so my current job, or my job that I had during COVID, was I taught like first grade, second grade, first and second. It was a combo of first and second grade. Yeah. And when we went online, they were too young to do live lessons, right? And we lived in an area where some of them didn't have access to a Chromebook. Some of them didn't have stable internet. And so my principal was like, hey, like, just, you can video record something, explain how to do it, and then just be available for, those kids that either want to email you or call you if they need help. And so I never did like live instruction during that time that everything went online to the end of the year. So I wasn't really well versed in that area. I wasn't, it wasn't something that I had any experience really doing. And so this interview that I had, that I did at the Fletchers, because they had internet and we were homeless, I was nervous because, first, I've never really done this. Second, it was kind of
my last crack at getting into, a teaching job up there, right? And the third was on this call, because it's a private school, there were so many, there were board members on the call on this actual lesson that I had to give. There were 6 to 8 kids. It was for a 3rd grade spot. And then there were other teachers. There were parents of some of the kids. And then obviously there was the principal and the assistant principal. So there was this huge audience essentially on this call.
So intimidating.
Yes. And I'm having to teach this math lesson to the 6 to 8-year-old kids. Now, some of you might think okay, well, you just do the lesson. But a lot of good teaching, you have to know the kids. You need to know their backgrounds. You need to know where their starting points are. I knew none of that, right? And so it was, in that sense too, is pretty stressful. So all that to say is that I did this lesson, tried to do a great job. And I mean, I don't know how it went okay, but into the story is that I got the job, but it was definitely last minute, right? It was that morning, and then it's dude, I need to get this job, and then I'm waiting, how did it go? The next day, it was pretty stressful.
So we had been in Bend, for a day or two. You do the lesson plan, and then you find out you get the job the next day. So we did our final submission of, okay, here's his teaching contract.
Yep.
Also our down payment, we had to go and get an official check for that. And those are the last pieces before everything was finalized. And I believe it was on a Tuesday when they said, all right, you guys can come in and get the keys to the house.
Yeah.
And we finally met the owner, who I think it was, we drove up, and I think it was replacing a garage door opener or something like that. But the relief and overwhelming joy when we finally got those keys in our hands, that's when it was real. Not when we arrived in Bend. There was so much anxiety and wonder about whether or not this was going to come through. But driving the U-Haul over to the house and realizing this is our home. That was a day I will never, ever forget. But also the start of Adventure Part 2 of Bend.
Exactly.
An adventure that thousands and thousands of people followed on my stories, and that was the renovation part. So this is a whole other part of the story that in some ways allowed us the courage and to work together. A realization to work together. But so what happened was we got that U-Haul, went to our home, took that first picture in front of the house. You got that realtor sign that says sold. I still remember just how happy we were. Probably cried a little bit. But we walked into the house, and it was the first time we walked into a house, and we're like, oh my gosh, we can do whatever we want to this house. As far as cosmetically, we can rip up the carpets and we can paint the walls. And we had never done any type of renovations before. And I think at first we thought we were just going to maybe hire some people to help us. We looked at pricing and we're like, well, we can't afford that. And then we just had this discussion of why not try to do it ourselves? And I love so much that you were up for that. And so within days of moving to the house, we just decided as a family, we are going to work on this house with our own 2 hands.
All hands on deck. Let's
all
go.
Hands on
go
deck.
For it.
Slater and Monique Fletcher played a massive role in that too. They had tools. They had the experience. They had done some renovations themselves. And they would come over and give up their afternoons and evenings and mornings to come help us with the house too. But we put the kids to work too. We had them ripping up carpet, painting walls. I still remember the first time when you were painting Isaiah's bedroom. And I think it was the first time that you had a paint sprayer. And you come walking out, and I was like, you need to put on some gear to protect you from all of that paint. And you hadn't, like, the room wasn't ventilated, like all these things. Like, we were learning like the most basic things. I was like, you're going to suffocate in the room. Here it is, the dead of summer, and you have paint all over your body, all over your head. And like the room was all stuffy. I was like, all right, we're going to crack open the window. But that was also the start of our mini trips to Home Depot. Yeah. So we would go to Home Depot 3 times a day.
Yep.
And we kind of fell into this pattern of, okay, I don't think that your school started till like middle of September. Oregon starts a little bit later.
Yeah.
And so we had 4 weeks straight where you and I, that's all we did. Mm-hmm. And what we did was we did some initial, the first thing we did was, let's just paint all the walls. Yeah. And then that way we can move out of the Fletchers, so we're not overstaying our welcome there. Mm-hmm. And then we're just going to live on air mattresses until, we figure things out. And so that's what we did. We went to Home Depot. We kind of just picked a paint. I said, you can't go wrong with white. Yep. Let's just paint the whole house white, because at this time it was tan. It was tan walls, tan ceiling, tan tile, tan countertops, and tan carpet. It was all the same color. Nasty. And you know what we can do, Ed, is pop up some before and after pictures for our YouTube listeners. This will be really fun. I have some before and after of a few of the rooms in the house. So you can see what it looked like before. You can see the work that we did after. But to say that we were lacking in experience is a great understatement, because we learned as we went. Mm-hmm. And I think the confidence that we had was just going back again to that move in Washington, D.C. Yeah. I know for me too, just learning new skills, learning jobs, like you're only going to learn how to do those things by trying. Yep. And there was a lot of trial and error. The painting was the least intimidating of all. Yeah. And you and I watched a lot of YouTube, a lot of Pinterest. Mm-hmm. That was like our teacher, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, I did everything after I watched a video. I'm like, I don't know how to do this. Let's watch a quick video and go for it. Yeah, At night,
that was how we ended our day. Eddie would be watching videos on YouTube about the work that he was going to do the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, we ripped all the carpet out, and then we put flooring in, and had no idea how to do that.
Well, we painted, and I think what the thought was, like, all this flooring is going to come up, so let's just paint first.
Yeah, after the paint. Yeah, because we spilled paint
everywhere.
Yeah, paint was all over the carpet, because I knew I could be a little careless, because I knew we were going to rip it up. So we ripped out the carpet, and then the first thing we did was start putting flooring in.
So the shopping for flooring was really fun, because we were kind of like picking and choosing, okay, what kind of floor do we want to go throughout the house? We decided that in the bedrooms, the 3 little bedrooms we had, which were all essentially the same size.
Yeah, pretty small.
Like the primary suite was not that much bigger than Mackenzie's room. No. And the bathroom was basically a closet.
So small.
But it was perfect for renovating, because all the spaces were simple, and they were small, and it was great for us to experiment on. But we decided to carpet the bedrooms, and then you chose this really pretty, what was the flooring that you chose?
It's like a darkish gray vinyl planks.
Vinyl planks. And again, we'd never, ever laid flooring before. And I think that was our first point of frustration. Do you remember this?
Oh, yeah.
Eddie and I our routine, let me just back up. Our routine every day was, Eddie and I were usually up first. And there's so many great coffee houses in Bend. Mm-hmm. My favorite thing was getting up really early in the morning. And the mornings were pretty cold there already. Yeah. As we're coming into the middle of August. Even then, the mornings were cold. But we would get up and we'd get coffee. And then we would drive to Home Depot, and get our supplies for that day on the project that we were working. And the only reason why we took multiple trips in a day is because we made so many mistakes, or we bought the wrong size or the wrong color, or like we needed a new tool, or, something new was happening every day. But when it was time to lay the plank flooring, you were on YouTube learning how to do it. Yeah. I mean, no one had taught you. You didn't go to school for it. This was an experience you had in the past. But I remember we were only 2 rows in, and you couldn't get it to line up right, or like it kept on popping out, or there was space being created, and you realize, oh my gosh, I have to cut some of these pieces so precisely. And if I don't do that, it'll be off by, you know, a quarter of an inch, and that just ruins the whole row. And I remember standing on one side of the living room. You were on the other side, and you were kind of like beating your head against the wall because this plank wasn't fitting, and you'd like pound it in with a hammer, and then there'd be like a little space left on another row, and you're like, dang it. Yeah. Like, you were frustrated, and you usually don't show a lot of strong emotion in the way of frustration or anger. Like, you're pretty like steady Eddie, like even, but I remember just sitting there and looking at you, and my heart was just like I had a lot of compassion for you. One, I was so proud of you for trying all this. Like, I was so proud looking around, like, one, we got this house. Two, we've already painted all the walls, and it already looked exponentially better. It was brighter. It was beautiful from the ceiling to the walls. It would just look so pretty with this brand new paint on it. And now you really wanted to lay this flooring. And I remember like kind of, you kind of just sat there on your knee, and you're looking at me like rolling your eyes. Like, this is why we hire people, Sally. And I looked at you, and I was like, we literally have no money to hire people. And I said, Eddie, this is part of it. And I'm here to struggle with you. Like, it's gonna, like, I don't know what to do. You don't do, I don't expect you to, but I will say I'm super proud of you, like, just for trying. And I really believe that you're going to get it. And the next day you laid all the flooring in the living room, went on into the kitchen, and it was beautiful. And you just got better and better as we went along. You got so good that you decided to update the molding, the baseboards, some really pretty baseboards. You got really intricate with the corners and those really hard pieces that have to fit perfectly into place as you turn a corner. And I think with every project, you just gain more confidence that if I just watch somebody else do it, if I research it enough and just follow the steps, I think I can figure it out. And I remember joking with you at one point. I said, who are you? The man that I've known my whole life is the most projects I've ever seen you do is hang a picture frame, hang a mirror, and hang a very basic wooden shelf. That was it.
That's it.
Those are the only things I'd ever seen you do as in regards to any type of home improvement. It's not sad. It's just the way we were raised, you know? I grew up helping my dad. He was a handyman, and I grew up going to work with him. And so there were some things that came back to mind that I remembered about plumbing, electrical. I knew how to remove toilets and put together ceiling fans.
Yeah, one of my favorite memories, it's in I can literally see it, is we were deciding like, okay, what are we going to do next? And I'm like, I can't remember what we were thinking about what we would do next, but I just remember we kind of had this conversation. Well, should we do the bathrooms now, or should we wait, like get everything else situated, and let's do the bathrooms weren't bad. They were functional. They were fine.
Very dated.
Very dated, but we were like, let's get the like everything else done, and then we can kind of tackle the bathrooms. And next thing I know, you were walking out the door to go.
You and Slater were in the front working on something. So this is right after we had painted the walls.
You were like walking out with the sink. I'm like, I guess we're doing the bathroom.
With the whole vanity.
Yeah.
I carried the whole vanity outside.
With your gloves on. I was like, okay.
I removed the sink. I did all that. Yeah. I was super proud of myself that I remembered how to do that. I told you, I was like, it's been so long, but I do remember. I have these, I can take very vivid snapshots. I can remember things. If I get my hands back on of something that I did once before, if I go to a location that I went to a long time ago, it comes back to me.
Yeah.
And I removed the toilet, I removed the vanity, I removed the sink, and I hauled it all out to the dumpster. And you and Slater are looking at me like, who are you?
Yeah, we're like, what's going on?
And you're like, well, I guess we're renovating the entire bathroom.
Yeah,
the floor, left. Everything. There was nothing. I took up the floor. I took up everything.
Yeah.
But it was so fun. It was so fun to dream and design and experiment and try. And one of my favorite things that you did was build a fireplace. And we'll put this up on the YouTube as well. I think I even did a time lapse of this, but we found this, this fireplace hack that you can do where you buy the fireplace insert. It's like a little heater display type thing. And then you build a fireplace frame around it. And it was so beautiful. And then you added bookshelves and built-ins all around it. I mean, you completely transformed the living room. So between the brand new flooring and the new paint and a fireplace and built-ins and shelves, I mean, I remember we wrote our names, the kids did, in the flooring underneath the planks. I wrote Bible verses on the ground. But I remember standing in that living room and just really tearing up. I couldn't believe that was our home. I mean, it would transform so much. And from there, we started to experiment in the kitchen and kind of figure out, okay, a new faucet. I think I tried that hack of painting the countertops, which we eventually replaced the countertops, but that was a very temporary thing. You and Mackenzie worked on the cabinets and the shelves and the new hardware. You learned how to take down the cabinets and the doors in the kitchen. And you guys repainted them, you sanded them down, put on the new hardware. It completely changed the whole look of the kitchen. We had one of those freestanding islands from IKEA. We had that from our previous home down here in Huntington Beach. We put that in the middle of the kitchen. But we redid 2 bathrooms. And the bathroom that was my favorite was in the primary bedroom where you'd put up shiplap on the walls. Now, I'm a huge fixer-upper fan, and in the early years of fixer-upper, I mean, they did shiplap on everything. I know they've kind of graduated from that, but the bathroom was so beautiful. Those white planks on the wall and the cute little vanity and brand new mirror, and we got to pick out the light fixtures. And I mean, this was months. It was a solid, I think, so August is when we started. And by Christmas, we were done. I think Thanksgiving, Christmas, we were finished. And it was beautiful. It was so beautiful. And this time, Christmas came around, and I started dreaming of Badwater again. So I knew that I was going to be putting in for it. I knew that my training was going to look different up in Bend. Kids had been going to school online at this time, so they hadn't gone to school yet. And that was really hard for them. You started your job for whatever reason. That private school you guys were in person every day from day one. You never had to teach online. So what my days look like, once you started school in the middle of September, the bulk of like the big work. So flooring and paint was done. And so we started to move in the furniture. We had things were carpeted, and then we would work on projects on the weekends and in our free time, all the other stuff. But the bulk of the days were me getting up with the kids, and I was trying to create some type of normalcy with them, some type of community with them. So I'd make a big breakfast. They'd sit next to each other with their iPads, and they were like classmates. And they go to school for a few hours. They spent a lot of time too when they would do their, some of the teachers had in session, classes. So then they would go in their rooms for that. And Wednesday they called it office hours day. So on Wednesdays, I would take the kids to the mountain. So now it was snowing by this time. And I thought, you know what? Let's get the kids. I found some used snowboards online. That was their Christmas present. We got them one lesson at Mount Hoodoo on how to snowboard. And I think this is one of the best things that we did, because now they love to snowboard, and they're both little shredders. They're both so good. So New Year's Day, they got their first lesson on Mount Hoodoo. It was a smaller mountain than Mount Bachelor, which was 15 minutes from us, from our house in Bend. But Hoodoo is in Sisters, about 40 minutes away. And after that one lesson, they were just rocking every route on the mountain. They loved it. And that became something that was every Wednesday, and sometimes just on Friday, I was like, we're not going to stay in the house. We're not going to stay inside our bedroom. I'm taking you guys out for adventures. And what came from that was really beautiful. Isaiah and Mackenzie, they'd always been pretty good friends. They'd always been pretty close. They shared a room until they were 6 and 8 when they were little, which we did that purposely to help build that relationship and that bond between the two of them. But now that we were up in Bend and they were far away from everything that they had known, and it was a little bit harder to meet people. We saw them start to form a really powerful bond, a really powerful friendship.
Yep.
And when you would be teaching at school, I would take the kids up on the mountain. They would go snowboarding together. Or I'd take them out onto the trails, and we'd do like 3-4 hours of just these really just exploring really beautiful routes. And both the kids have pretty incredible endurance just because they're used to doing that. I mean, I started taking them on the trails when they were like 3 and 5. And so this was a great way to get them in the sunshine, get them in fresh air. I mean, we'd go out on these trails. Sometimes we were the only ones out there, and we'd take pictures and we'd laugh and we'd sing and eat a lot of snacks and just kind of do our own thing. And our schedule, our life in Bend for just especially those first 6 months was a complete 180 from what our life was like in Huntington Beach. You know, the Fletchers were like our family, so we saw them the most. From the first day that we moved there, Mackenzie was running with her team at Summit High School, and she made friends right away. But I do remember the first day dropping her off to go run, and she had tears in her eyes because she was so nervous about stepping onto a campus. She was a freshman, so already being a freshman is kind of scary. You're a little bit timid. Like going into high school is a really big deal. And I drive up. We're in a brand new state, in a new city. She doesn't know a single soul. And Isaiah and I are in the car, and she hesitates before stepping out of the car in her running gear. And she says, "I don't want to go." And I look at her, I was like, "You will be okay." And she's got tears welling up in her eyes. And I was holding back the tears. I waited until she got out of the car, but I cried all the way back to our house. And I just felt like a terrible mom. You know, I felt terrible that I'm just, I plucked her up out of Huntington Beach and I'm setting her down here, and now she's afraid and she doesn't want to go out to the team. And, Isaiah was in the back seat, and he's like, "Mom, is she going to be okay?" And I was like, "Yeah." And, we can pray for her that God would bring her some good friends and that she would have a good time. And by the time we went back and picked her up, she had made a couple friends and she loved it and she was smiling. And I thought, this is such a powerful life lesson for her. Yeah. You are going to be okay. And it is new, and the transition is hard, and you're missing your friends, and there's a lot of uncertainties. And the other thing that was cool was there was still a lot of activities for kids. So I remember we signed up the kids for swim lessons together. So they did swim lessons together. And then when the ice rink opened up, the kids took ice skating lessons together. They took snowboarding lessons together. Isaiah signed up for karate, which he had never done before. But I remember having that conversation with you. Let's keep the kids busy. Yep. Like, they will be in as many activities as we can find. Let's get them, comfortable meeting new people, trying new activities, and really just only knowing a few people in the area. I mean, it was new for all of us. I mean, you and me too. Like, you and I, we've been best friends since we were 18 years old, but, and you can talk a little bit more about this too, Eddie, but I feel like every day that we sweat next to each other, working on that house, renovating that house, it really rejuvenated just our relationship.
Yeah, it was fun to work on a massive brand new project, right? Together, and to figure it out together, like you said, with putting the planks down, and hey, we don't know what we're doing, we're gonna figure it out together, and we're gonna struggle together and make it happen. And whenever you're put in those situations, it's always, it always comes out where you're better for it and you're stronger for it. And that was just one of those cool opportunities that we had to work together to accomplish something, which is, looking back, we're pretty proud of.
Yeah. I know I really just appreciated how much focused time we just got together.
Yeah.
And I remember saying to you at one point, I mean, it was probably like day 29 of us getting up in the morning. We would walk around the lake. Yep. It would be early in the morning. We'd walk around the lake, and we would kind of giggle every time and say, "Can you believe we're here?" Mm-hmm. And at one point I was just like, I feel like I'm dating you again.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it was a special time, right? Like, it was, it was, looking back now, it's like, dude, that was epic, cool experience. And yeah. And
so that was our life. Eddie and I, our relationship took on a whole new meaning because we're renovating this home together. your drive to school was 1 mile.
Yep.
And every day you would see deer, and your drive took you over the river.
Yep, that was awesome.
And when you were here in Huntington Beach, you were driving an hour in rush hour, horrible traffic, bumper to bumper each way. It was an hour out, hour back. And so often we would just have these conversations because everything is small and compact in Bend. It's a much tinier city. And we were just like, wow, like we can get to each other within minutes, no matter if our kids are at school or at practice or you're at work. We're so close to everything. And it was just everything about it was a whole new life, experience. And for me too, like I had to get back to running in the snow. I mean, I'd learned to do that when we lived in Washington, D.C. That was the first time running in freezing temps and falling snow and ice and, really cold winters. And now we were back at that. And that was really good for me. It was funny running in snow for so long, training for bad water. Yeah. And so I'd say like the first 6-7 months was a whirlwind of I can't believe we're here. I can't believe how everything fell into place. And we're renovating a house. And we went from like, hey, let's just like go rent to like, let's buy. Now let's renovate the entire house together. Yeah. And then now I just want to take it and I kind of want to pivot into how is it that we then move back? Because the truth is we moved in August of 2020 and we were back in Huntington Beach in June of 2021. Mm-hmm. So we were only there for 10 months. Our transition, like how do we transition from we're renovating this home, we're experiencing this incredible life change, we love our life here in Bend, to now it's time to move back to Huntington Beach?
Yeah, and I think not that everything was part of this, but the world was still really odd, right? There was a lot of questions of different, is it going to lock down again? Is it, everything was just very odd. And, when we had no family up there and there was a lot of questions, it's like, the kids are only this age for once, right? And and for them to try to navigate this with no family, with limited friends, because the friends were, they made friends, but a lot of it was, not deep friendships because of the lack of interactions that they really had. Mackenzie had a little bit more, I think, just because she was plugged into the team, but Isaiah, he had a hard time like trying to connect with certain kids.
And he's someone that knows everyone.
Yeah.
I know people have joked and called him the mayor. He's like, he knows everyone. But I'd like to just reiterate on that. The kids, in my opinion, they were thriving as far as like they were trying so many new things. I mean, all these activities that we had put them in my opinion, their relationship was getting stronger and stronger by the month because they genuinely like all that they had. So they're kind of like forced to hang out with each other all the time. But then it was like they were having a lot of fun. They were laughing all the time when they would hang out with each other. And Mackenzie was racing. She was having a lot of success. She was on the varsity cross country and varsity track as a freshman. She was one of the standout athletes there and had developed some really great friendships on the team. But one of the things that I noticed that I had never seen with our kids was this a deeper sadness. Even though they would have some good days, I remember you coming home from work and I would tell you, I don't think I've ever seen the kids cry this much. Yeah. And it wasn't so much the state of, oh, I miss my friends. It was more like the world is upside down. I don't know how long I'm going to have to do school inside my bedroom and be disconnected from so many people. And then, it would be back and forth with lockdown, right? It would be the kid. I remember Mackenzie, they would go to school and then all of a sudden school was shut down for a week. And then they'd be able to go to school and then it was shut down. And Isaiah was starting school at 10 in the morning and not getting home till like 4:30 in the afternoon. These really weird hours. And, I was running my business at the time, and my running business was actually doing really well. And, I still had at the time, most of them are still my sponsors, great sponsors. So, on my end, everything was growing. The business was growing. I had found this really cool, workplace community. So I got a little office. If you're familiar with WeWork, when WeWork was around, it was kind of like a similar, thing in Bend. So I got like a little office and was starting to take on more athletes. My training was going really well. I really loved, I could train in new places and be challenged by the cold. And I was able to get up in altitude. I would, run to different places where I could be like at 5,000 feet. And, I was just experimenting with so many different things, but I did notice this deeper sadness that did concern me. And I remember having conversations with you and saying, where our kids, not only their mental health, but just that feeling of security, by having family all around them, this is our home. Mm-hmm. We can always come back to our home, but we actually need to consider the idea of going back to Huntington Beach if the world stays this way.
Yeah. And
there was a lot of confusion, I think, for all of us in that, because we had such a big heart and hope and ambition for being there. I mean, we all wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And the kids were finding joy, whether it was in our long day hikes or snowboarding, just their days outside. But we did feel strongly about getting the kids back to be around family. So it was really confusing at first. But one of the things that I realized as we started to consider that, so that was only like 7 or 8 months in, was the job that you had taken. The salary was essentially almost a third of what you were making in California.
Right.
And for whatever reason, one night you and I sat on the couch and I was telling you about some of the ideas.
Yes, yep.
The ideas that I had for my company. And one of them was like, I would love to do an app. I really, really want to explore a podcast. There's some projects that I have in mind, whether it was like the YouTube films. I mean, there was a lot of things that were just bubbling out of me that I wanted to do. I really wanted to finish the book. And I just felt like after renovating the house with you too, I was like, I want to work alongside you. And that had been a desire of mine for a long time. And there were times throughout your career as a teacher that I would say that. Yep. Do you want to, and I would say it wrong. I said, do you want to come and work for me, which is the wrong thing to do when you are basically providing for the family, you are taking care of the dental and the health insurance and all that. This idea of, hey, do you want to be my assistant was not very appealing. And I learned something or two about how you communicate and present opportunities to people. Don't make people feel like, that they're just this little side job, this menial job, but like, make it feel like that we're dreaming together, side by side, that we're in this together as a team. And
So did you trick me?
Well, I can say with full confidence, clearly not, because most days of the week, I don't even know what it is that you are working on. And you do a lot of, especially now, a lot of high level business meetings and planning that I don't even know about. So, which is great. And I love that. But at the time, and even looking back, you and I had done a lot of jobs together. We were soccer coach counselors for summer camps when we were in college. When you and I had first started dating, the first couple of years of our dating relationship, you were one of the youth counselors at the local church and one of the worship leaders at the church. And I would come and help out too. And I worked at the preschool there. And so you and I were used to doing little jobs together, and we loved working together. We just, that's just a unique part of our relationship. We just love being around each other and have a lot of the same interests. And so I think this idea of like, can we make this work, us together? Can we pursue some new ideas, some new opportunities together, was only found because we moved out of California.
Yeah.
See, that had been a dream of mine for about 6-7 years.
Mm-hmm.
I had come to you many, many times. Now, listeners, you have to understand how many times I came to Eddie, and it actually never made sense.
Right.
Because you would look at my business and you'd say, there's nowhere in here that makes sense for me to walk away from my salary, from all of our medical benefits, and then just help doing this. I don't see where I could make up that money. This just would not, it would be irresponsible of me. Mm-hmm. And you were right. Year after year, it just didn't make sense. But it took moving out of California and going to Oregon, where you were making a third of your salary, mm-hmm. where we then realized, as my business was starting to grow, that we could live entirely on my salary. Mm-hmm. And as we started to have that conversation, at this time, there were a few one-time contracts that were being presented to me, some pretty big contracts.
Yeah.
And I gave one of them to you. And I remember you saying, you're like, dude, I've never negotiated contracts or getting in on these meetings and talk to somebody. And at this time, I was starting to get into some of the peak training for Badwater. I mean, I was really dreaming big. I was, this is probably right before I started doing my weekly training runs. I would fly down to the Badwater course and run. And I said, you know what? Let's experiment. How about you handle this contract? Go see what you can negotiate. And you ended up negotiating one of the biggest one-off contracts I'd ever had. Mm-hmm. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I could not believe the deal that you made with this company. And that kind of sealed the deal in a way. I was like, see, if you could do that once, I mean, the contract, the amount of the contract was, I'm just going to say this, it was more than half of your entire year salary as a teacher.
Yeah.
And all I had to do was a handful of deliverables. Yep. I mean, it was the easiest thing for me. And I was like, that is incredible. And then I started to tell you about my podcast ideas, and, you having been in a couple bands and had been around sound and audio and being a musician, you understand way more about all of that than I knew nothing. Mm-hmm. And so I started telling you about this idea for a podcast, and you're like, yeah, I could probably, figure that out. And I think what gave you confidence too is you figured out how to renovate our entire house. Mm-hmm. And you're like, I think I could figure out how to do a podcast. And there was a few people that had sent us a few tips and ideas of, some things that you can do. And, but you dove into figuring that out too. And then making the decision to move back from Bend to Huntington Beach right during, I think it was the last 4 or 5 weeks before I raced Badwater.
Yeah.
Now, listeners, moving from one house to the other side of the city is stressful. Moving out of state and then back again within 10 months is exponentially stressful, overwhelming.
Not recommended.
Not recommended.
Not at all.
But, we sat down as a family and we asked the kids, what they thought about us moving back to Huntington. Mm-hmm. And, we had a couple good discussions, and kind of the same way as when we had left Huntington, I told you, if I can find something that's pretty much in the same neighborhood, low rent, then maybe that will kind of give us the green light. Otherwise it's not going to happen. But I did have great concern as a mom, wanting to get the kids back surrounded by family. Mm-hmm. And so we ended up finding a house to rent that was about 100 meters away from the house that we had left in Huntington.
Which is crazy because that area is very sought after, and
it's almost impossible to get in there.
Rarely has openings.
Yeah, it's a neighborhood full of families. Mm-hmm. It's highly coveted. I mean, the kids grew up and went to the elementary school that's right in the middle of the neighborhood. It's such a great community. And just as it was when we left, it was not easy leaving Bend. Like, I think even in those last few weeks when we were packing up the house, we were all conflicted.
Yeah.
You know, there was a little bit of even confusion on our end as far as we worked so hard to get here. We had great hopes and dreams. We thought we were going to stay here. I mean, I thought that was where both the kids would go to high school, that they would graduate from there, that they would leave Bend and go to college somewhere.
Yeah.
I felt like this is a dream come true, being in the mountains. I'm literally 15 minutes from Mount Bachelor. The kids love the snow. Both of them really love the snow and the cold weather and snowboarding. You love seeing deer every day and walking along the river.
I do.
And just the community, you know, there are so many things about it that we really loved. But I think one of the things that we had in mind was kind of what we felt when we were in Washington, D.C. Just because you make a big move doesn't mean it has to be permanent. And it doesn't mean that you can't move again.
Yeah.
And I think we can kind of lock into society's idea of like, you buy a home, you get a job, and you stay there and you do that for 30, 40, 50 years and you don't stray away from it. And if you do, there's something wrong.
Yeah.
You know, what's the problem? And already when we had left, there was a lot of questioning and all of this. And I remember having that conversation with you and the kids and kind of prepping them. You're going to have a lot of people that are going to be like, oh, so you moved back, huh? Or you made a mistake, huh? And I didn't feel like it was a mistake. If anything, I felt like it was another step towards something that we were dreaming of fulfilling.
Yeah.
It was taking us out of a spot where essentially we had felt stuck. We had felt stuck in debt. We had felt stuck in, you know, you were trying to find a job every year.
Yep.
Every year you were trying to find a new job.
Yep.
And I remember saying to you, when you're 52, are you going to be teaching first grade? Is that what you want to do? Because it's really hard to get tenured. You keep on being put in these temporary positions and you have a master's degree. And as you get older, like no one wants to give you a tenured job. You're an expensive teacher with a master's degree. And it was just this constant dead end and this debt. And I thought, you look at our move to Bend, because we moved to Bend, we got out of debt. The business grew. We rekindled and rejuvenated our relationship, not only just between the two of us, but like seeing that come out of our kids. We taught them that they can do something new, that they can make big, scary life transitions and still make friends and discover new activities and new places and make new memories. But that single move to Bend showed you for the first time in all of the 7 years that I've been asking you, yes, Sally and I can work together. And now as we sit here in our podcast room, we have now been working together for 3 years. And I can say in full confidence, I am living out a dream come true working alongside you. And we have created things that we never believed were actually possible or that we could never even think of. See, when we got that little house back in Huntington Beach, we packed up our stuff. We moved from Bend back to Huntington. We launched the podcast 2 months later, 2.5 months later. A few weeks after launching the podcast, we kicked off our Sally McRae Strength app. And because of that, I was able to finish my book because you were around.
Yeah.
And we were working on the same things. And so if you were like, dude, I have a lot of work to do today on the business. If you want to go write for 4 hours, you can do it. You weren't teaching at school all day. And I think that sometimes we will take a step of faith. We'll go after a dream because we think that is the actual goal that we're going after. But really the way I saw it was that big step of faith to go up to Bend. It was the first step of achieving more goals and more dreams than we could have ever thought up of ourselves at that time. And I think that is the most exciting part about dream chasing, about going after the big, scary goals is you might think that it's about that one thing, but I promise you there's a lot of other things that are going to happen along the way. And there's a lot more opportunities that are going to come simply because you were courageous, simply because you believed that this pie in the sky goal could be achieved. There's a lot more wrapped up into it. And that's a piece of the story that I don't think we've ever talked about. But the day that we moved from Bend, the kids were in the car. The car was running. And I said, I'm just going to run in real quick back into the house. Do you remember this?
Yeah.
And like 1 minute passes, 2 minutes passes, a few minutes pass. And you finally were like, I need to go retrieve Sally and say, hey, we're waiting in the car. And I remember standing in the living room and just looking around at our empty house. And I started welling up with tears. And you walked into the house and I just broke down looking at you because I said, this was our dream. It was our dream to own a home. And I pointed to everything in the house and I said, look how beautiful our house is. And I said, you made me a pretty home. This is the most beautiful gift that anyone has ever made for me. And I love it so much. And my heart is broken that we are leaving it now.
Yeah.
And that was really hard. I mean, we'd written our names in the floor. I was thinking back to the months and the hours that we had put into every little detail in the house. And knowing that for almost 20 years, we did not believe that we would ever own a home and that it wasn't meant for us. And standing in that empty house that we had renovated with our own two hands, there was a lot of emotions, not so much about, okay, now we're leaving, going back to Huntington Beach, but it was shattering these constraints, shattering these ideas that I had once held about us.
Yeah.
I felt like even in 2019, 2020, we were in, we had some points of tension in our marriage with our finances, like me being frustrated for you, knowing that every single year you had to find a new job. Like as your wife, that was hard for me to watch. It was hard, like every single year, not wondering if you were going to find a new position, but being honest, saying like, do you want to keep doing this when you're 50, when you're 52, 53? Like, what do you want to do? And so we had some frustration. So now we are standing in this house and I'm realizing every single thing that you hoped for, Eddie. We were debt free. You owned a home. You had renovated it completely. And now because of that, we were now going to be partners in this business and go after even bigger dreams. But we would have never been able to do that had you taken that first step of courage and thought, you know what? I'm going to entertain Sally's idea of moving up to Bend. I'll look at a Zillow. I'll send it her way. And then we'll go up and we'll spend these 3 days up here and explore the idea of moving up here. And if it works out, great. If not, no. But all of that started with just a little bit of chance, a little bit of faith, a little bit of trust. Okay, let's just go for it. And I so often, you and I talk about this so much. And when you and I are creating, we talk about this. Look how far we have come. Look how much we have built. And it didn't come without a lot of tears, a lot of uncertainties. Even when we moved back, as I said at the beginning of the podcast, there's a lot of people questioning us, but I smiled deep inside knowing it is a story that was not meant for everyone to know and to witness every step away. It's a story that's very, very personal to us. Because even now, it still doesn't make sense to people. They're like, yeah, I just don't get it. Like, you were up there for 10 months, you got a house, you moved back. Obviously, it wasn't what you liked. And people make comments like, oh, you didn't like Oregon's government, or you didn't like this, or you didn't like that. And I was like, no, it's so much deeper and so much more personal to us than that. Because at the root of it all, it was taking a step of faith into something that we didn't know, that we were uncertain about, that we didn't believe to be for us. And we did it anyway. We went anyway. And our kids were alongside us that whole time. This was a hard transition for them. And we are so proud of our kids. And what's important to note too is we still have that house.
Right.
It has become like, the housing market grew exponentially after that first year. I mean, it is now an incredible investment, and our real estate agent was right. Like, that was the last house listed at an incredibly very low price. But we love that we still have that little house there. We rent that house out now, but we go up there frequently. Go up to Bend a few times a year. Our family talks about Bend and how much we miss it, how much we love it. Yep. Sometimes we say, like, maybe one day we will find ourselves back there because it is really special to us. We go up there every winter during Christmas break, and we go for a snowboarding trip to hang out with the Fletchers and just be there because it is like our second home. I think our kids will always see it that way. Yeah. There's a piece of us here. And when we drive past the home, I can't help but just get overwhelmed with so much emotion about all the changes that took place there. See, us moving to Bend wasn't about moving there to live there. It was about learning a lesson in faith and hope and pursuing dreams that, at that time in our life, it's like, we're in our 40s at this point, and it's very easy to be set in your ways when you're 40 and think this is how I'm going to live out the rest of my life. But man, that was just the beginning of new dreams, new ideas, and a whole pivot in a career for you, Eddie. Yeah. I mean, I think it's scary for anyone that's listening that's in the thick of a career, if you're considering a career change or going after a big goal, and even if that goal is a race, to have a lot of uncertainties, especially the older you get. This is how I operate. This is where I fit. These are the expectations that people have of me. This is what people want me to do. This is what I have said that I do over and over. And because of that, I'm not going to stray from it. Because of that, I'm going to just stay in this box. I'm going to stay in these expectations, and I'm not going to go outside of that. You and I shattered all of it. You stepped out of your career. We stepped out of the expectations. We left everything behind, and we took our kids alongside for the ride. And man, one of my greatest joys is knowing that for the rest of their life, they will have that as a marker to look back to. Yeah. This is unknown for me, but I remember what my parents did. Yep. They were crazy. Everyone thought they were crazy, but they went for it, and it was incredible how it turned out. And I was right there. I mean, Isaiah McKenzie can say that. I was right there in the transition. I left behind my family, my friends, everything that I knew, my sports teams, all the familiar streets and places that I love to go to. And I entered a whole new city. I learned how to renovate with my dad. I watched my parents build new things, and then essentially start to build more of the business together. I think that this project before me, or this goal before me, I can do it too. Yeah.
And I think you alluded to it earlier, where as Mackenzie's, moving out, right? Like, she's moving to a different state and different, just different world, and she's going to go to college, and it's new friends. It's, that's not going to be as difficult for her. She's moved, she's had to go make new friends and cry that first day, trying to make friends that are on her team. Like, so just simple things like that, like, that's going to give her confidence, and Isaiah the same. Like, whatever he chooses to do later on, he's going to look back to these experiences and say, you know what? I survived. I can do it. I can do it again. And that's kind of the things that we lean upon and fall back on now too. It's like, we can try stuff. Like, we can go for it. Like, look what we've already tried and done. So, I guess the next question is, like, when are we going to move again? Time to renovate again.
Well, you and I have this, like, burning fire inside both of us. This is like a monthly talk. Yeah. You and I had so much fun renovating.
Yeah, we did. I think it's time to do it again.
We want to do it again. And we'll look on Zillow sometimes, like, can we find something that's like beat up, even if it's a little 1-bedroom apartment? Like, what could we, renovate? And I think we've just found a lot of joy just doing it together and figuring it out. Like once you do it once, right?
Yeah.
It was scary and crazy and not a good idea in the beginning, but it's like, but we did it. You know, we renovated every single room and, you know, built a fireplace and, you know, did all that. And it was just so much fun. Just so much fun.
Yeah, it is.
You know, Eddie, since we left Bend, we have, you know, we launched a merch shop, we launched an app, we released a book, a podcast, this incredible Choose Strong community on Strava and Facebook. And, you know, I want to ask you, I kind of know the answer, but I'd love for you to just answer this out loud. How have you felt about all of that? Has it been easy? Is it something you like? Do you ever miss teaching?
There are, no, I love what we're doing. I love the, you know, just the impact that you've been able to have and kind of watching that. And, you know, just being flexible and being able to go to your races, which I never, you know, was able to do, and being a little bit more available for the kids has been awesome. And, it's a very different world than teaching. Like you mentioned, that whole contract, you know, thing with going to, you know, this WeWork type place and figuring something out with a contract that came your way and you know, wanted me to negotiate it, like, which was all so new to me. I had no idea what I was doing. And, you know, so learning skills to, you know, as I'm going has been awesome, because you're always learning, right? You're always trying to pick up new skills, and this is something that I've had to do. And yeah, so I mean, there's elements of teaching that I miss. I miss interacting with kids, you know, daily. It kind of keeps you young when you do that. So I do miss some of that, but overall, like, no, I think it's been awesome to work alongside you. And man, I'm so committed to work. I mean, in fact, this morning, I had our neighbor drive up as I'm getting out of the car, and comes up out of the car and says, "Hey, do you want to go shoot machine guns with me down at Camp Pendleton?" And I had to say yes, but I can't. I have a podcast that I gotta record today. It's gotta be recorded today. So I had to turn down going shooting machine guns with this like pretty stud military guy that we know.
Matt's awesome.
So anyways, I had to turn that down. So that's how I just want to let you know publicly how committed I am to this podcast, to the work that we are doing.
Absolutely. And it's been fun. I know we talked about this on an episode, but just how much you have evolved the podcast. You know, we started off with that little piece of, I don't know, designer board hanging off of sticky hooks MDF on a wall, MDF board, with a little light strung behind us, and then sitting next to each other at a desk with our laptops. That was how our podcast started. And then you moved on to soundproofing a room, and then you moved on to better microphones and better cameras. And it's just every year it's evolved. And now we are sitting in an actual podcast studio, and it's beautiful. You've got the best sound quality. Listeners, one of the things that Eddie has never stopped doing is watching YouTube. I mean, you've taken classes on YouTube and watched lessons on everything from photography to filming to audio, podcasting. I mean, it's been incredible to see you just remain a student in these past 3 years, so that you can be better at all of the jobs you hold. You do a lot. I think it's easy for you to work 7 days a week. And I am dead serious when I say that half the time I have no idea what Eddie is working on. I mean, he's constantly in meetings and managing a lot of requests that come our way. I've also, we started working with a speaker bureau too. So it's managing speaking contracts and my athlete contracts and just events. And it really is a full-time and then some role that you play. And I couldn't do any of this without you. I mean, we wouldn't have this podcast without you. We wouldn't have an app without you. I don't know if my book would be done had you not come alongside me in that. And we have 2 YouTube channels, and just the fact that we've been able to adventure together.
Yeah.
The Choose Strong podcast, the Choose Strong project, and in the Grand Slams. all of that it goes back to you being courageous and brave and taking a chance and moving to Bend. That's like where it started. And I'll forever be thankful for that. I think our Bend story will always be very personal to me.
Yeah.
And like anything, it's not this smooth story. Not every single transition is full of perfect responses and understanding, but I think that's how life is. When we drove away from our house in Bend, we all cried in the same way that we did when we initially left Huntington Beach, because transition is hard and you're leaving a little piece of your heart and what you once loved behind. And then you're also questioning yourself. I mean, I think we can spend our whole lives questioning every single decision that we make, whether it's a relationship decision that you've made or a career or what college to go to. It's very easy to question ourselves. But what I have learned through all of this is there isn't really a perfect yes, no decision in most things in life. But what I have learned is that wherever you step, there's a lot of good and growth and amazing experiences that you're going to gain.
Mm-hmm.
Even if it comes out that you turn around and go back to where you started, you grow.
Yep.
And that idea that I said, every time I'm in a situation, I try to look for the good and the blessings and what's happening there. And that was like when we turned on to Mount Hope Lane for the first time. That's what I was looking for.
Yeah.
And then when it was time to leave Mount Hope, that was what I was looking for when we moved back. And, we essentially moved back 3 weeks before I ran Badwater. I was so severely, I know you were too, Eddie, exhausted.
Yeah.
Emotionally, physically. It was not a time in my life where I thought I was going to run an A race and win this race. So just so you listeners know, winning that race was even more of an emotional journey for me. It was just such a whirlwind time for us. So 2021 will always be a very special year, I think, for you and I, Eddie, that, that we will remember very well. But the Bend story will always be one of the most precious and favorite stories with you that I will always hold dear to my heart for our entire lives.
Yep. Likewise. Pretty special.
Yeah. I think this is our longest podcast we've ever done.
It definitely is. Yeah, it definitely is.
Yeah. And I'm thinking that this is either a 2 or 3 part series for people, or for those that are still running.
Oh my gosh. If you are still running.
You are still running. I hope that you have eaten.
Whoa.
And you've had some electrolytes along the way. We have to give a big thanks to anyone that has gotten to the end of this podcast.
What's crazy is that you could have started this, ran a little bit, took a 2-hour nap, and then turned it back on. We're still here.
Yeah.
That's how long this one is.
That's a good calculation right there.
Yeah.
Well, Eddie, I just want to wrap this up by saying how thankful I am that I have gotten to do life with you as your wife for the past, it's going to be 22 years.
Yes.
And I am so very grateful for your courage, your willingness to adventure, for putting up with all of my crazy ideas, and just being a fun, supportive partner along the way. I love dreaming with you, and I can't wait for what's ahead.
What's next? Well,
yeah.
I echo all of that. I do. So, yeah, wonder what's next for us.
Well, we can have a little chat after this.
Well, I'm sure you have a couple ideas over there already.
Listeners, thank you so much for enduring with us. We love you. We appreciate you. And we want to encourage you to keep choosing strong in all you do.